Welcome to NUIC Football, joined by the incredible Logan Swan. I am your host, Kyle Kampmier. Later on the show, we're going to have Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle come back onto the show this week to talk about IFA as we start to look forward to the last 3 weeks of the season. With that, we're painting that brush, getting that playoff picture nice and pretty. Logan, we're going to recap week 6. We're going to break down matchups for week 7. We're going to take a look across the state at the state-ranked matchups that we have this week. But more importantly, we're going to take a look at some of the games that we feel are big, impactful games to the playoff picture in week 7 as we start to put that playoff push into full force here. It's hard to believe we're only 2/3 of the way through the season already. And as they say, we're starting to see the cream rise to the top with playoff battles starting up, qualifying teams, playoff seeding on the line. Any games around the state that caught your attention last week?
Definitely in my area, Camp Point and Brown County, with Camp Point when that's 27-6. I picked Brown County on the WIVC page. I was clearly wrong. Camp Point did what they always do. They just win. That's all Camp Point ever does. They just seemingly never lose to anyone not in NUIC, or when everyone's favorite true 1A school in Belleville, Altoff, seemingly drops to 1A for a few years. So, uh, Camp Point kind of solidifying himself, like you said, on the instant reacts, where you have Camp Point here, and then the other two WIVCs, and obviously Calhoun and Brown County, and then the rest. Uh, there's still that big Week 9 matchup between us and Brown County where that can change things, but that's still a few weeks away. Camp Point, just clearly, they're not gone. They're still here for the long run.
Yeah, you need to keep your WIVC contingents off my back. Like, I'm not that much of a homer. I do like the conference, and obviously Camp Point Central has definitely proven themselves to be an elite level team. On top of that, I'm pretty sure they're everybody's pick to get back to Bloomington this year, or Normal, we should say, because ISU actually sits in Normal, not in Bloomington. Either way, they were everybody's pick to get there last year, with the exception of the all-tall superstars that came through. No need to talk about them anymore, but regardless, very proud program that they've definitely established. Coach Dixon doing great things at Camp Point, and it's showing on the football field week in, week out. Even when they're down a player as great as Caden Niekamp, they still find a way to blow people out that you're expecting close games on.
Yeah, it was. I think Camp Point was I think they were like a 1.5, 2-point favorite entering last week, and they won 27-6. The projection was I remember that the projection was only 28-22, and I'm like, that felt right within how I kind of envisioned prior to the game happening, it kind of playing out something similar. And Camp Point, they played stellar defense, and they had a workhorse and Jasper Flesner, obviously, and the other backs supplemented, and their line we heard about Brown County's big physical line, which they are big and physical, but Camp Point was able to get off the ball and, like kind of Shuck said on the instant reacts, out physical that Brown County line that everyone had heard about.
And that's one of the things I normally do on Friday nights when I'm on the sidelines at a game. I usually have my AirPods in, listening to another game. The game I was listening to this week actually was the Brown County Camp Point game. And of course, I got to listen to the wonderful Jack Hall do his announcement on Central Illinois Sports. And, obviously he was talking about just what you spoke about, the physicality that Camp Point was bringing to a Brown County team that was supposed to be more physical. They had the size advantage, but Camp Point Central was able to just use their speed and toughness and actually just power their way through. And while the score was a 3-touchdown differential, Camp Point Central really controlled the tempo of the game from the onset and never relinquished that at all.
Yeah, I think I saw an update. It was I think it was 13-0 at halftime, and then it was in the third, I think, sometime 19-0, and it obviously ended 27-6. So Camp Point really they got the momentum, and that's a tough place to win. I can personally tell you, when we went up there, what was it, 23 when we went up there in week 2, and we lost in that close game 30-22. that's a hard place to win. I think I actually don't know the last time they lost a true home game. It might it might have been the year in 22 in the playoffs when they lost to Athens. That might have been it. It might be something like that. It's been a while.
Yeah, we'll have to go back and take a look at that. But nonetheless, impressive all the way
Yes.
around. And we'll talk about Camp Point Central later in the show because I want to touch base. We got to get familiar with some of these names. We've heard of Caden Niekamp. We know Kale Niekamp is coming up. We've heard of Jasper Flesner and Curtis Rigg. We need to get a couple of these other guys' names out there, and I know you got them on the back of your hand. So we'll talk about that down the road. One of the games that stood out for me last week was IC Catholic beating
Oh yeah.
number 2 ranked in Class 5A Wheaton St. Francis 35-28. I saw a comment here yesterday about IC Catholic and about how they look every part of being a 6A team. We've talked about it. They play a 6A schedule. Obviously, they play in the Chicago Catholic League, which is no joke of a league. And on top of that, IC Catholic is the smallest total enrolled school in the Chicago Catholic League, and they're literally going toe to toe with the Nazareths and the Marist and other schools within uh, that that vaunted league, so to speak, and they really stand up to it. Another one that stood out, I was surprised by it, but not surprised at the same time, as Cully Walters' Monticello team took down St. Joe Ogden 28-21. That was a game that St. Joe Ogden was definitely favored in, but the Sages, they pull one out here, and now both those teams are sitting at 4-2, and Monticello just perked up a little bit as the playoff picture is starting to take shape. They just earned themselves a higher seed with that win there for sure.
The Illini Prairie, the always tough Illini Prairie that we talk about. Yeah, I know SJO is favored pretty heavily, if I recall. I kind of expected St. Joe's to win, and then out of nowhere comes Monticello. I think I think you have talking about the Illini Prairie. I think you have like a clear top 2 in Tolono, and then BCC. But like these other teams that you would say are a tier down, like they could beat those other two on any given day. It just depends on how they play and match up. It's just that's a fun league, and I was a little surprised by it as well.
Well, it's a fun league, but on top of that, they have a proven track record of
Yeah.
success. I mean, like you said, we saw Monticello at state last year. They were at state back in 2018 when they beat a Byron team that they were supposed to lose to, and they won that one. We seen Tolono Unity at state here just a couple of years ago. St. Joe Ogden's been to state. I mean, they have a lot of state championship appearances. The only thing that they don't have is a lot of state titles coming back to the conference. But either way, very, very proud conference. And like you said, a very, very tough conference at that. Byron beating Dupac 42-14, a game in which Dupac led 14-12 at half. That was a game where, obviously projections had Byron favored, rightfully so, but they also had Dupac pulling off an upset, which kind of baffled a lot of people, to be honest, myself included. And going into that halftime with the score 14-12, yes, Dupac had the lead, but realistically, while that shocked a lot of people that were watching from afar as far as score updates coming through across social media and whatnot, I felt like Byron was really in control of that whole game, even in the first half. They just had some critical errors that Dupac was able to capitalize on. A long kickoff return, a huge catch by Brady Moore in the end zone to give them the lead to go into halftime. Definitely propelled them ultimately, but Byron is Byron, and Caden Considine had himself one hell of a game with over 200 yards rushing and 4 touchdowns on top of that.
Yeah, Byron did what Byron does. We talked about it. We saw it. We felt like Dupac could kind of hang around for a little bit and make it a game, and then at some point Byron was going to be Byron, and that seems like what had happened. Obviously, Byron had some mistakes that good teams like Dupac can take advantage of, They clearly in the second half ironed out on those issues and pulled away. It's not to say that Dupec can't compete in 3A North. They very much can. If they can just do what they did for a whole first half for a whole game, they give themselves a puncher's chance.
Oh, for sure. And that's one of the things you got to take away from that. I mean, Dupec definitely lived up to the challenge, a tough challenge at that. On top of that, we got to see Andrew Talbert, the quarterback of Byron, just committed to the University of North Carolina for baseball. So, that's one of the things that people were talking about. Is he going to go baseball? Is he going to go football? And I had a feeling he was going to go baseball. So congratulations to Andrew Talbert as far as getting with the Tar Heels and committing to play college baseball there. Of course, he still has the rest of his junior year yet to finish out, plus his senior year. So huge shout out there. And then Westville beating Clifton Central 37-14. Not surprised that Westville won. I just was thinking it would have been a little bit closer than that score differential. But, everything I've heard about with Westville, they're big. They're running a wing T style offense. They're power running, and I got a front row seat to Clifton Central last year when they gave up 72 points to Lena Winslow in the first round of the playoffs. And wow, they scored the second most points in the playoffs against Lena Winslow last year. A lot of that was in garbage time, of course. So, but both those two teams are definitely running atop the VVC here right now as we head into the final 3 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Westville winning again wasn't a surprise, like you said, but I was kind of surprised it wasn't a touch closer. I figured Westville would win by maybe a score or two, but not by almost, what was it, by 3 scores. So that was a little surprising. I know people have talked about Westville kind of separating themselves in 2A and being a team to watch. Uh, Obviously there's Wilmington and Rockridge and everyone up north, but Westville is definitely kind of, at least for the time being, trying to separate themselves into that contention in the Southern Talk as well.
Well, and that's just it. Right now, Westville sits kind of on that proverbial bubble. They could go north, they could go south. I was talking to a coach at Bismarck Henning Rossville Allen over the weekend, and he was like, "Hey, I got us going south. What do you think?" And I said, "Yeah, I had you going south." Well, I hadn't done the projections yet. And then all of a sudden, a couple teams popped up that weren't in the projections the week before, but were this week. And then both Bismarck Henning, Rossville Allen, and Westville were back into the north bracket. And if that happens, man, that's going to be a very, very tough north bracket, which will realistically make that 2A bracket basically a fighter's chance with Monroe Forsyth, possibly DuQuoin, Nashville, maybe Vandalia. But really, and rightfully so, it would be Monroe's Forsyth to lose at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of how I view it. Uh, Obviously, you don't want to forget about Johnson City. You can't count them out. Don't want to forget
Oh,
about
yes, I
them.
forgot about
But,
Johnson City. They did. They gave
yep,
Monroe
you
Forsyth
did.
a good run last year in the
They
semifinals,
did.
so we definitely don't want
Eh,
to leave the Indians out there.
So,
TP Talk might get a
Westville
little mad
going
at me.
Westville going south would definitely make that southern bracket a lot more interesting. Not to say that it went them going north one either, but that north bracket it already has some heavy hitters like we've talked about with Wilmington, Farmington, and Rockridge, of course. So for me, I would prefer them to go south just to make the southern bracket a little more interesting. That's just a personal preference.
Well, we'll get more into that talk later as the show goes on. Let's take a quick look at our Byron Wealth Management scoreboard from last week. Stockton getting the win over Galena 30-12. Byron over Dupec 42-14. Our game of the week was EPC and Forreston. EPC coming away with that one 51-24. Big win there for the Wildcats. That was a win that they had to get, that we feel with their upcoming schedule in order to make a shot at the playoffs, and they did so in a big way. Fulton getting their first win of the year with a 55-14 win over Dakota, and Lena Winslow taking care of Morrison 46-7. No surprise there. But, let's take a quick look at our NUIC standings, and that is going to be brought to you by Volkert Design. So right now on top of the leaderboard, still Stockton and Dupec tied for the conference lead. Stockton overall at 6-0, Dupec at 5-1. Right there on their heels is Lena Winslow at 4-1 and 5-1 overall. So realistically, Lena Winslow's hoping for a Dupec upset of Stockton, and then those two would meet up in week 9, and Lena Winslow for an opportunity for a share or a 3-way split of the conference title. Forston is 4-2, 4-2. EPC is at 3-2, 4-2. Galena 2-3. Overall at 3-3. They have a tough road ahead as they need to get 2 wins yet coming up the road in order to make their playoff livelihood be there. But they're favored, so that should happen. But, it's still a ways away. Fulton picks up their first conference win, their first win of the season. Dakota's at 0-5, 1-5, and Morrison is 0-6, 0-6 on the year. So there's a look at our NUIC standings. We're going to jump into our game previews before we head into our state matchups and then go into playoff projections when we return right after this.
Hey there, local high school football fans. This is Sean Considine, a Byron Tiger and Iowa Hawkeye alumni and now an LPL financial advisor. I'm passionate about high school football because it's the purest form of the game where communities come together, lifelong character is built, and the love for football runs deeper than the scoreboard. You can find me in my Byron office most days until I run off to football practice. I'm happy to talk about football or the markets. I'll leave that up to you. I want to wish everyone across Illinois a safe, successful, and memorable high school football season. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC.
Are you looking to raise funds for your program? Look no further than Leading Edge Fundraising, helping teams and programs raise more with less hassle. Whether you're gearing up for a new season or trying to hit a financial goal, Leading Edge has the tools, products, and experience to get you there. From youth clubs to varsity programs, they've helped teams across Illinois maximize profits and minimize stress. Want fundraising that actually works? Go with the local experts who know how to win off the field too. Contact Brandon at 563-514-1647. Leading Edge Fundraising, raising the standard. Reach out today and take your program to the next level. Logan, the first game we're going to take a look at is Southwestern East Dubuque traveling to Fulton. Southwestern East Dubuque comes in with a 1-6 record. Fulton comes in with a 1-5 record. For those that don't know, Southwestern East Dubuque is a Wisconsin school. Obviously, East Dubuque being a part of that co-op. East Dubuque obviously a part of the NUIC as well. Last week, Fulton beat Dakota 55-14. Southwestern East Dubuque lost 24-12 to Mineral Point. On Fulton's side of the ball, Wyatt Connor led the way with 12 attempts for 147 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. By the way, he's only a freshman. Jonah Lutz also had 12 attempts for 86 yards, and Braden Myers was 6 for 7 passing in his return with 152 yards and a touchdown. On the other side of the ball for Southwestern East Dubuque, who is also head coached by former Lena Winslow state champion Joe Edler, Bone Sherman was 11 for 15 passing with 81 yards. Lucas Foley had 9 attempts for 74 yards and a touchdown. 5 receptions for 21 yards. Also was the defensive leader with 7 tackles and 2 tackles for a loss. Xander Tierney had 12 attempts for 60 yards along with 6 tackles. Dax Silverson had a rushing touchdown, and then Drew Martin picked up 6 tackles and a tackle for loss as well for Southwestern East Dubuque. So, this is a game that for the playoff teams, Fulton needs to win this game because obviously it gives them a playoff point for the rest of those teams that are still vying for playoff spots, and even the ones that are going to the playoffs. they are going to want that playoff point as well for better seeding.
Yeah, the track record for the NUIC in its non-conference this year is pretty well. I think it's 5-1 now. Obviously, that one lone loss being to Byron, it's pretty understandable. Their track record against Wisconsin schools, it's pretty good. I think I think they've played 3 games against Wisconsin schools, 2 of them being against the same team. I think they're 3-0. They just based off of that and kind of what I've gathered about how Wisconsin translates to the Wisconsin football translates to kind of down here. It feels very much like Fulton should get this win, almost fairly convincingly.
Yeah, I mean, Fulton's going to enter as a 3-touchdown favorite, not surprising. While their record is 1-5, they've definitely have had some tough goes with some tough losses in there. They had that week 2 loss to Dupec where it was 34-21. They lost to Forest in the very next week, 36-28. Opening night, they lost to EPC 52-20, in which we thought that would be a closer game than what it was. Obviously, Stockton, Alene, and Winslow took their toll on them as expected, and then they got the big win over Dakota. So, Fulton's the favorite here, projected to win 42-21. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Yep, definitely.
All right, let's go to Dakota, where the Indians are going to host Morrison. Morrison enters at 0-6. Dakota enters at 1-5. Last week, Morrison lost 46-7 to Lena Winslow. Dakota lost 55-14 to Fulton. That was a running clock at halftime, by the way. For the Mustangs, Carson White was 10 for 21, passing for 120 yards with a touchdown and an interception. Brady Anderson had 6 attempts rushing with no yards, so their run game really got shut down pretty bad by Lena Winslow. He did pick up 4 receptions for 68 yards and that lone touchdown score. Jacob Banks also had 3 receptions for 36 yards. I didn't get any information on Dakota yet. They had some issues with their game stats and whatnot, so I really don't know what transpired. The only thing I do know is that they were being shut out at halftime. It was a running clock when they started the second half. When you look at this game, this is a good matchup. I mean, these two teams, ironically, since 2005, these two teams have combined for 5 state championships. But looking at where they're at now, you would never guess it. As both programs are struggling with low numbers. They're having a hard time performing on the field, and mostly in part because of that as well. But Morrison, I feel, is a touch better than what Dakota is. Morrison enters this game as a 14-point favorite as well.
Yeah, I'd pick Morrison in this game. I think the speed of Anderson and Milder, if he's playing, I don't know if he is now or not. I think just the overall speed of Morrison will give them a better chance, and they've been in a couple more games than what Dakota has been this year, and it's not trying to pick on Dakota. It's what the scores have been. So I like I like Morrison in this one. But I think you can expect a decent game.
A Morrison win here will set up a big matchup next week with Fulton for the wooden shoe, as well as, a lot of people are going to be excited for that Dutch tradition there. So I like Morrison too. They're definitely the favorite. They're the pick to win. That's my expectation. So we'll return right after this. Life comes with a lot of big decisions, from protecting your home and family to planning for the future. That's where Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial comes in. As a local agent, Tyler knows our community and is committed to helping you build a plan that's right for you. Give Tyler Hoffman a call today at 815-248-2188 or stop by his office in Durand. Tyler Hoffman with Country Financial, protecting what matters most. Need a logo, website, or standout graphic design? Check out Nick at Volkert Design. your go-to for high-impact branding and design solutions. With over 20 years of experience serving businesses across Northern Illinois and Chicagoland, Nick delivers best-in-class websites, logos, and graphics that get noticed. Whether you're a startup or an established name, Volkert Design brings your vision to life. Visit Volkert.design today to see the difference top-tier design makes. All right, Logan, number 2, Lena Winslow, number 2 in our state rankings anyway. Lena Winslow enters at 5-1. They are going to host number 13 ranked Galena, who enters at 3-3. Last week, Galena lost 30-12 to Stockton. Lena Winslow won 46-7 over Morrison, which we just got done talking about. For the Pirates, Roman Romer was 11 for 31 passing for 115 yards and an interception. Sam Amaya had 6 attempts for 11 yards on the ground. Keenan Leiden picked up 5 attempts for 54 yards, leading all ball carriers and rushing yards for the Pirates there. Drew Koenigs had 3 receptions for 54 yards. Max Schultz added 2 receptions for 33 yards. And Colton McCartney had 4 receptions for 12 yards. For Lena Winslow, it was a quick show. Aiden Wild had 8 attempts for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex Schlichting picked up 4 attempts for 90 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Kobe Kearns had 5 attempts for 37 yards and a touchdown. And then there was a couple other players in there, obviously, for Lena Winslow that were able to go through and, get some carries and some much-deserved playing time as well in some varsity minutes. So Lena Winslow obviously has been rolling since that loss that they had back in week 2 to Stockton. Everybody talks about how, the Calhouns and the Camp Point Centrals and a couple other schools have given up very few points, which is notably true. Lena Winslow has only allowed 20 points, with 13 of those coming in junk time since that loss to Stockton. So it's safe to say that Lena Winslow is starting to get in a roll. Granted, 3 of those 4 games did come against the lower level teams across the NUIC, as their schedule is going to start to tick up again here with Galena, EPC, and Dupec remaining. But it's also going to start to sharpen their blades as they get ready for that playoff run.
Yeah, obviously the week 2 loss to Stockton kind of seems like a distant memory when talking about Lena Winslow. Like it obviously happened, but they've been really on a roll since then. They obviously beat Rochelle, who was pretty highly thought of in 4A. They've obviously, like you said, they kind of came against the bottom, but they're not giving up a lot of points. They're scoring a bunch of points, and they've really gotten on a roll. The big thing that I kind of wonder about this game is, can they continue to separate? Obviously, last week, the final between Stockton and Galena, a big rivalry game, was only 30-12. Can they kind of exceed that to show they're farther ahead now than when they were week 2? And obviously, you don't show all your hands in week 2, and I doubt Stockton and Lena Winslow did. But like you said, in that week 2 matchup, Stockton played basically a perfect game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game for the Blackhawks. I mean, we've talked to Coach Downey a couple different times. He definitely didn't feel like they played perfect, and rightfully so. As a coach, you're always going to find places where you can fine-tune things, even in a game that many felt was a great game, and almost flawless. I mean, they didn't make any penalties but one, which was a spike of a touchdown. They only had 1 incomplete pass. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure Coach Downey's correct. There probably were some things that they felt as a coaching staff that they needed to clean up on, and rightfully so. That game was back in week 2. Likewise, since then, Lena Winslow has just been, like you said, they've been doing what they've had to do, but the last 3 weeks they've gone through the 3 easiest games on their schedule, and have taken care of business handily. The one game was a 38-0 win over Dakota, which was actually a shortened game due to weather. Ironically, Dakota was the only place that had weather that night. But anyway, there was like 4 minutes left on the clock in the second quarter, when that game got called, and Lena Winslow was up 38-0 already, so it wasn't going to matter regardless. But yeah, they have 3 potential playoff opponents in front of them now, and they've already played 3 potential playoff opponents with the likes of Forest and Stockton and Rochelle as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Lena Winslow comes out of the last 3 weeks with, getting back to full health. On top of that, they've only played the first half of the last 3 games. Now they're going to be in a dogfight because, they're playing Galena. And let's be honest, last year Galena gave Lena Winslow everything they could and more in a 22-10 win for the Panthers. So, while Lena Winslow is going to enter as a big favorite here, they're projected to win 30-6. I will not be surprised if Galena can do some things defensively to slow down the Lena Winslow offense. But with Roman Romer at quarterback as well, and the receiving core that he has with Koenigs, Schultz, McCartney, Owen Hafel, they're going to be able to find some plays, I'm sure of it, that will help expose that Lena Winslow secondary. And that's a great test for the Panthers as well to kind of refine some of those skill sets, because let's be honest, that was a big portion of what cost them the game against Stockton as well. Outside of the fact that they just didn't execute across most of the game. They didn't fire off the ball like Stockton was winning the line game, which 9 times out of 10, the team that wins the battle on the line is going to win the game. And, but they suffered tremendously on 3rd and long situations, in the passing game, especially in that first half, that led to 3 consecutive Stockton scoring drives. So this will be a great test for Lena Winslow, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with that. The part that I'm going to look out for, and we've really talked about it with Galena and their offense, because they're a very stingy defense. That I'm going to give them credit where it's due. Their defense is very stingy, and they don't really have anything given up easy on them. How well do they run the ball? Obviously, Roman Romer was 11 of 31 last week. That doesn't bode well for any team. If you're having to throw the ball that much, it doesn't bode well for you, because you can just start dropping back. You can start dropping 7 guys back into coverage, and we dare you to run the ball. If you can't, you're screwed.
Yeah, it does present a great matchup. This is one of the games that I was tossing around as a potential game of the week type matchup, because there is a good rivalry there as well. But we went in a different route for our game of the week, but this is definitely a big game, especially for Galena. If Galena can pull off an upset, holy smokes, man, that will definitely increase their playoff value along with their playoff seeding as well. I'm going to pick Lena Winslow in this game because I just feel that they are the better team, but don't be surprised if it's closer than what the projections state.
Yep, I'm right with Lena.
As we head to Forreston, the number 11 Cardinals come in at 4-2, and they are going to play host to Dupec, who surprisingly remained at number 6 in our state rankings this week, despite having lesser votes, actually, but other teams below them also had lesser votes overall. Dupec comes in at 5-1 after surrendering that big loss to Byron 42-14. And I think some of that, though, was respect for what they were able to do in the first half with Byron. On top of it, it was not a running clock situation either. Forreston, on the other hand, had a big game with EPC. We talked about it last week. Going to the pasture is always a hard place to play and come away with a win. Forreston got routed 51-24. For the Cardinals, Christian Rye led the way with 11 attempts for 84 yards rushing. Caden Loomis also had 11 attempts for 67 yards. Connor Polish had 8 attempts for 55 yards and a touchdown, and Jonathan Milnes had 36 yards on 6 attempts with a touchdown. On the other side of the ball, Dupec definitely had tough yards to come by. I think they only had a total of 183 offensive yards. Lucas Rosso had 12 attempts for 39 yards. He was 5 for 10 passing for 43 yards and a touchdown with an interception. Dermot Dolan had 16 attempts for 29 yards and a touchdown. Brady Moore had 2 receptions for 26 yards and a touchdown. But when you take a look at this game, you know, when the preseason stuff came out, this was a game that you looked at it and you're like, Dupek's the winner when you were doing projections. I don't think much has changed on that.
I agree with you. Truthfully, I think obviously they lost to Byron, but like you compare Dupek to that up the top of the NUIC with Stockton and Lena, and then what they've done against the middle, like the other ones have. Obviously, Lena's only lone middle game has came against Forston, which was week 1, which was so long ago at this point. But Dupek's really outside of the Fulton game, if that's the one I'm thinking of, has really kind of pulled away from all of them, and so I don't think much has changed here with the projection of Dupek winning. It could be a touch closer than we originally thought, but I like Dupek here.
Yeah, I mean, when you go through and you do sample sizes of score comparisons, which never is always a good thing to do, but when you can really take a look at what teams can do and what other teams can do, you know, they did beat Galena 52-20. That was a game that Forston won 22-20 on the last play of the game. They routed EPC 38-0, and we just watched what EPC did to Forston. You know, when you take a look at just those 2 games alone, and they were recent games at that, and then on top of that, Dupek, while getting beat pretty good by Byron this past week, they came out relatively healthy as well. And not only that, but they got a taste and understanding of where they need to be as far as the physical part of the play if they want to truly make another deep run in the 3A playoffs. And I just don't think Forston has the size up front to be able to do it. I think that Forston is to make headway here against Dupek, they're going to have to do some things differently offensively, which would include getting the ball in the air a little bit more. And possibly, you know, going back to like the 2018 semifinals where they completely throughout their entire playbook. They ran the same offensive scheme in their double wing, but they started throwing quick out routes to the flats and stuff, and it just completely caught Lena Winslow off guard, and it led to an upset. I think Forston's going to need to do something similar, but Dupek has very, very good defensive backs. And then on top of that, they have a good linebacking core. And I think that the line advantage is going to be in favor of Dupek as well. It's going to be interesting to see how the game takes shape. I think there are areas where Forston, if they play sound fundamentally, can make some things happen, but Dupek's favored by 26 points in this game. I'm going with Dupek as well.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, we're going to talk about our Jess Schumacher game of the week when we return right after this. Are you looking to buy or sell a home in the NUIC area? Trust local expertise. Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country knows the market and understands the community. Whether you're upgrading, downsizing, or buying your first home, Jess is here to make the process simple and stress-free. Put his experience to work for you today. Call Jess Schumacher with Remax Town, Lake, and Country at 608-347-3659. Your hometown realtor, helping you find home where your story begins. Our Jess Schumacher Remax Town, Lake, and Country game of the week takes us to Stockton. The number 1 Blackhawks enter at 6-0. They are going to play host to the number 8 ranked EPC Wildcats, who enter at 4-2. EPC won last week 51-24 against Forston, what we just got done talking about a little while ago. Stockton beat Galena 30-12. You know, that game for Stockton really shows their resolve because they had 3 turnovers and an onside kick go against them, and they still won the game pretty handily. So, to be able to come back from that many mistakes and still win a game against a state-ranked team is pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Stockton, they keep on rolling. It doesn't seem like anyone or anything is going to slow them down, and until the playoffs start. And even then, it doesn't seem it may not be anyone other than Lena Winslow and 1A North. So Stockton just keeps on winning. They keep on rolling, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. Galena's defense is stingy, and they made those mistakes, like you said, and they still won by 18 points. So Stockton just seemingly on a different level compared to most of the other teams around them.
Yeah, speaking of Stockton, Jack Mensendijk led the charge with 23 attempts, 142 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Carter Blair picked up 74 yards on the ground. Mark Detweiler also had 56 yards on the ground. Noah Larson was 3 for 3 passing for 56 yards. And Morgan Haas had 2 receptions for 38 yards. On the other side of it for EPC, Draven Zier, 20 attempts, 182 yards, and 4 touchdowns. With that, he also surpassed the 1,000-yard mark for the season. So you'll see that when we get the stats out there. But, we talked about it at the beginning of the year, remember? If EPC was going to have success, Draven Zier would have to have a big breakout season. And we talked about, goals of reaching 1,500 yards rushing, getting into that exclusive 3,000-yard plateau and achievement. And he's doing it, man. And, speaking of that, we have to shout out the EPC offensive line because they have been doing a great job most of the season getting Zier into the open field. And that includes Brody Vagley, Will Burchin, Tegan Dyson, Clayton Downs, and Desmond Moore. So huge shout out to that offensive line as they continue to just push Draven Zier to be the NUIC leading rusher. And it's impressive. And then on top of that, Brecken Hayden also had 6 attempts for 94 yards and a touchdown. And then we also have our Reese and Reese Player of the Week for last week. Let's give them a round of celebration. All right. That guy is Zy Haverland. Had 35 yards receiving with a touchdown, had 4 tackles, a tackle for the loss. He helped shut down one half of the field defensively from his outside linebacker position. Also helped the blocking that led to 352 yards rushing for EPC. So congratulations, Zy Haverland, for our Reese and Reese NUIC Player of the Week. Deacon Hoffmaster, the sophomore QB, was 1 for 1 passing for that 35 yards and that touchdown pass to Haverland. Brody Simons and Will Burchin each picked up 12 tackles apiece to help that defense out especially. But when you take a look at this matchup, Logan, Stockton number 1 ranked and the favorite coming in.
Yeah, kind of like we talked about with Lena. They're number 2 ranked against a ranked opponent. They're favored 36. There's really not much difference here other than Stockton's favored 35-14. I think EPC can present some challenges defensively to slow down Stockton, but even then, I think Stockton's just ability on offense and explosiveness on offense with Larson back there, Mensendijk, Blair, and Detweiler. I think the explosiveness of Stockton will be just a little too much for EPC.
I would agree, but I'm going to go find out for myself. This is where I'm heading this week as I get my second opportunity to see the Blackhawks this year. It's always great going to John O'Boyle Field as a rival of Stockton. It was always great going to John O'Boyle Field and coming away with a win. But It's such a great setting, sitting in a city park right off of US Highway 20. And I don't know what it is. Small school football at its finest when you go to Stockton, that's for sure. I do like Stockton in this game. It'll be great to see if EPC can handle the physicality that Stockton brings. EPC is going to have the size up front, advantage-wise. The key is, are they going to be able to get off the line as quick as Stockton can? And that ultimately is going to determine how this game gets played out. But can they also slow down Mensendijk, who himself is having a big year rushing the ball, while also you have Carter Blair and Detweiler there in the backfield too? And then the passing attack from Noah Larson. I think that's one thing that's sort of getting overlooked, because since that game against Lena Winslow, they really haven't thrown the ball that much. But when you look at his passing stats and efficiency, it's like off the charts.
Yeah. That's something I've noticed when looking at like their stats is the efficiency of which Noah Larson is throwing the ball. It's not a lot. I think the most I've seen him throw for this year, most outside the Lena game, I think I saw was 8 times, and he was 6 of 8 or something like that. He's been very efficient. It seems like, obviously can't speak from watching him up close in person, but gets the ball on quick, makes the right reads, finds the open guys, and that frees up the rest of the running game for Stockton.
Well, and one of the cool facts that we have not seen yet, though, is the fact that he can definitely be a dual threat QB. He's the fastest kid on the team. So you have that great running backfield, but he's the fastest of them all. So we haven't seen Stockton have to rely on that yet, but that's just another thing that they have in their carriage that they can pull out at any time. Anyway, Stockton, favorite to win. Let's take a look around the state for Week 7 games across 1A. We're going to take a look at those state-ranked teams. Obviously, number 3, Camp Point Central is going to play Route, CPC favored in a running clock there. Newman travels to Riverdale for a Three Rivers matchup in the Rock Division. Newman favored to win that one by 2 scores. Calhoun and Carrollton. Oh boy, this is a big one here for you guys. Calhoun enters at number 5, playing Carrollton. Carrollton needs a win here. Obviously, they're projected in the playoffs, but this would be huge for them. Likewise, Calhoun wants to stay undefeated. Calhoun is favored 31-12 in this one. KZ Westfield comes in at number 6. They travel to Mount Carmel to play the Golden Aces at the Snake Pit. KC Westfield is projected to win 28-21. Brown County comes in at number 7, so they didn't fall very far from the rankings with their loss last week. They're going to host Beardstown. Again, they're favored by a running clock. Number 8, Anawan Weathersfield is going to play Princeville in a big matchup in the Lincoln Land Prairie Small Side Conference. Anawan Weathersfield, if they get the win, which they're projected to 35-17, will almost be certain to wrap up a conference title. Number 9, GCMS faces off with Mantino. This is a game that could potentially have some playoff implications on it as far as seeding purposes. I was talking to our friend Matt Sturdick about this game. He wants to see how the Falcons can handle Mantino. He thinks Mantino wins. Projections say GCMS wins by 10. That'll be an interesting to keep your eyes on this week for 1A playoff purposes. Along with Mantino, I believe Mantino is in the 3A playoff projections. Number 10, Tuscola already gets the win this week over Fisher by forfeit. They did try to schedule a Cola War game. Those plans broke through as Arcola did not want to schedule that game.
Sucks. That sucks.
All right, let's move over to Class 2A. Number 1, Wilmington will play Streeter. Wilmington is now on the playoff bubble, which we expected, but our current projections have 2A at 4-11. Wilmington's enrollment's at 400, but there are a lot of games that could push that number down. If we see some of these 1A teams get in, that's going to push some teams up into 2A, likewise then affecting the 3A field and potentially bumping Wilmington back into 3A, which would just make that 3A North more stacked. But right now, still projected in 2A. They have a running clock win this week. Number 2, Rockridge goes to Aledo to play Merco. Rockridge favored by a running clock before their big showdown with Monmouth Roseville next week for the all-track conference championship. Rockridge will win the conference title with a win this week, by the way, in the Rock division. Number 3, Moreau Forsyth at Olympia. Moreau Forsyth favored 56-28. Number 4, El Paso Gridley versus Eureka. EPG, running clock favorite. Farmington at Rova. Farmington's number 5, running clock. Number 6, Westville versus Waseca. Westville, running clock. See the theme here? Number 7, Seneca versus St. Bede. Seneca, running clock. Number 9, Johnson City versus McLeansboro. Johnson City, running clock. And number 10, Tri-Valley at Tremont. Tri-Valley is projected to win 40-14. So not quite a running clock, but wouldn't be surprised if it turns into one. And in Class 3A, our new number 1 this week, IC Catholic. They play Marmion Academy. IC is favored to win that one, 44-3. Oh, wait, running clock. Byron at Genoa Kingston, running clock. Number 3, Richmond Burton at Woodstock North. Richmond Burton's projected to win 38-14. Bloomington Central Catholic versus number 14, St. Joe Ogden. BCC projected to win 41-22. That'll be a fun one. Another fun one in the Illini Prairie, number 5, Tolono Unity versus Paxton Buckley Loda. PBL needs a win in a bad way, but Tolono Unity is favored 42-10. Number 7, Monmouth Roseville versus Hall. Monmouth Roseville projected to win 35-12. Talking with the View from the West guys, Mitch and Greg, they feel that Monmouth Roseville should win this one much bigger than that, so I won't be surprised if that happens. Number 8, Williamsville versus New Berlin. Williamsville favored 44-10. Number 9, Chicago Hope at Elgin St. Edward. Running clock. Number 10, Althoff versus Mater Dei. Althoff is only favored 28-21. So, Logan, let's get into the fun part here. Let's take a look at some of these games that are going to be impact games this week across Class 1A, 2A, and 3A. I'll let you take the lead.
You got Villa Grove coming in. I think Villa Grove's 4-2, not 3-3.
Last I checked, they were 3-3.
I thought they were 4-4, or not 4-4, 4-2. Maybe I'm wrong. But Villa Grove taking on Sangamon Valley. Villa Grove's is listed at 3-3. Sangamon Valley is 1-5. Sangamon Valley is listed.
Hold on. You are correct.
I thought I was right.
4-2.
I
wrote it down wrong. You are right. Villa Grove's 4-2. I wrote it down wrong.
This is a virtually a must win for them because their last 2 games come against Arthur and Sullivan, if I recall.
Yes,
it's one of those.
That's correct.
Yeah. So this is virtually a must win for Villa Grove at 4-2 because they will not be favored pretty heavily in their last 2 games, and even in this one against the 1-5 Sangamon Valley team, they are not favored. Sangamon Valley is favored to win 28-14.
Yeah, that's interesting because this will be a big impact game. If Villa Grove gets this, you can basically say see to Sterling Newman in the Class 1A field as they're going to get bumped up into 2A.
Yeah, you can basically you can slot them in and Sterling's out of there. Now you have Reed Custer at 3-3 taking on Herscher, who's 4-2. Herscher is projected to win 26-22.
Matt Surdick thinks Reed Custer gets this one, so it'll be interesting to see what happens here.
You have Havana at 3-3 taking on A-Town. A-Town projected, who is 2-4. A-Town is projected to win 28-21.
Havana, another one though. If they pick up a win, They have South Fulton next week, and a win there gets them 5 and into the playoffs, dropping another team from the 1A field if that were to happen, which would be Arthur Lovington at Wood Hammond. So Newman and Allah are on the bubble.
This is by far the one that I find the most interesting because Leroy, after their little tumultuous, I think it was 0-3 start, now back at 3-3, taking on the 5-1 Hayworth Hornets, who I'm a little familiar with. We played them in the playoffs a few years ago when all those kids on this year's team were freshmen and sophomores. They are now all obviously upperclassmen. Hayworth is projected to win 20-10. I actually like Leroy in this game. I think Leroy will be sitting at 4-4 week 9 against Tuscola.
So Leroy, in order to get to 4-4, would also have to beat Forston in week 8. If that were to happen, which right now Forston is heavily favored over Leroy, if that were to happen, Forston would be out of the playoffs. So if what you're talking about does happen, you think? Never mind. You think that they're still going to lose to Forston? Never mind.
Yeah,
you're right. You're thinking they win here, lose to Forston, and then they roll into Tuscola.
Let's go up, sitting at 4-4. Yep, I think that's what is going to play out. And obviously in week 9 anything can happen. Tuscola will definitely be favored in that game, but that's a good staff over at Leroy, and they know what they're doing. And they haven't really been, even when they lost to Tri Valley and Ridgeview, Lexington, and Gibson City, they weren't blown out. They were all close games that were competitive. So if that team can learn from those early season games and learn how to win, that's how I'm just going to say it, learn how to win. Obviously, they lost a lot of guys. Learn how to win in those close games. You can see Leroy coming in at 5-4 in 1A North.
Yeah, no, it's very possible because, like you said, if you take a look at their first 3 games that they lost to an undefeated Ridgeview Lexington, who's now into the 2A state rankings, 22-7. They lost to Tri Valley, who's 4-2 and is sitting somewhere within state ranking talks, whether it be receiving votes or in the state rankings. They lost to GCMS 21-12, who is 5-1 and sitting in the state rankings. All 3 of those games are relatively close games. I mean, 2 touchdown difference. Well, really a 2-score difference in all 3 of them, but not really that drastic, right? And then they come back and they take care of business against the teams that they were supposed to take care of, including Fisher last week, and that's part of the reason why they had to forfeit this week. They must have lost a couple players in that game, causing them to have to forfeit their game with Tuscola. But if Leroy can beat Hayworth, that will definitely change probably the projections on what that Forston game is. And Forston still needs to get that win. That'll be a game we're talking about next week for sure. We got to let this week play out. But either way, Forston will have to win that game in order to have a shot at the playoffs still.
Yep, for sure. So it's a fun matchup. Obviously, Hayworth's favored to win 20-10, but I truly like Leroy in this game. They've caught my eye with how they've kept those scores close with the upper teams in the HOIC, and Hayworth largely to this point has not been tested, whereas Leroy has. So
that's a great point. Great point.
So I like Leroy, and then obviously in the Illini Prairie you have PBL 3-3 taking on Kelowna Unity. Like we mentioned, Unity favored big time, 42-10. PBL in 2 of their last 3 games are going to be underdogs, and they got to find a way to win one of them. They're sitting at 3-3 right now, but they play Unity this week, and in 2 weeks they play Monticello, and then obviously in week 8 they play Rantoul, who they should beat. So they got to find a way to steal one here.
Yep, totally agree there. I don't know if that's going to happen. Kelowna Unity, very, very strong. Obviously, that one loss is the BCC and a good game on top of that. And they've blown through everybody else in the Illini Prairie. So you'd almost have to expect the same thing. Coach Josh Pritchard and the Panthers are going to have to find a way to slow down that Unity offense, keep the ball in their possession, chew up clock to give themselves opportunities to be in that game and possibly pull off an upset. But yeah, I think Unity wins that one big as projected.
And then the last game on here we have is Elmwood Brodenfield sitting at 3-3, taking on Ottawa Marquette. Marquette favored to win 38-20. I like Ottawa. I like Marquette in this one. I know a little bit about Elmwood Brodenfield from obviously the Views from the West guys, so I've heard good things, but I just think Ottawa Marquette's just a little bit stronger, and I like them to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Greg would be very excited if his crew can pull off the win here. And right now, with Marquette sitting at 3-3, they are projected to get to 6-3 currently. That's where I have them at in our playoff projections. But at the same token, Elmwood Brimfield and Coach Todd Hollis, they were in the playoffs last year. They had a good team that they put together. I think were they 9-2 last year. I think they lost in the second round.
It's 9-2.
Yeah, yep, 9-2, lost in the second round. So, and this year it's been tough because they got drilled by Farmington. They got beat by Princeville by 3 touchdowns. They just lost pretty much a must-win, almost a must-win game against West Hancock, but their path is still available. The problem is that right now their next 3 games are against 3 teams that are, one's going to be in the playoffs for sure. The other 2 are in my playoff projections. That's Marquette, which we're talking about right now at 3-3. Week 8 they have Macomb, who is 5-1. So realistically, Macomb's going to get in because we're already projecting 4 and 5 teams into the playoffs. And then they have Illini West, and Illini West sits at 2-4. But I have Illini West projected to beat Elmwood Brimfield because right now Illini West is the favorite in that game, and their schedule over the next 3 weeks includes a Bureau Valley team that just picked up their first win of the season, a winless Monmouth United team. So they should be 4-4 going into that week 9 game with Elmwood Brimfield. And for Coach Hollison and the Trojans, sitting at 3-3 right now, if they lose to Marquette as projected, which Marquette's a 3 touchdown favorite, they have to find a way to beat Macomb. So they too can get to a 4-4 record going into that week 9 game, or they got to pull off an upset this week. And yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But, you take a look at those ratings. We talked about it yesterday, with the high school ratings, the Max Preps ratings, and the Massey ratings. And in one of those rating sets, Marquette was in the top 10 in 1A. So obviously the crew are doing something right. And when you take a look at their schedule, they lost to Aurora Christian, not a surprise there. They lost to an undefeated Edgar, Wisconsin team, which Edgar always is. For Wisconsin, they're usually a state power in the smaller divisions. And then they just lost to state-ranked Seneca, who's also undefeated. So they've been battle-tested against good quality competition.
Yep. I like Ottawa Marquette in here, but if Elmwood Brimfield could find a way to steal this one, because that's what this would be, they'd be stealing it to make that week 9 at 4-4. One team's getting in and one team's being left out, and this is not me picking one, but a 4-4 matchup in week 9. That's about as good as you can get in terms of a week 9 matchup for feeling like a first round playoff game.
Yes, most definitely. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Tough.
There's no doubt about that. For the purposes of it, we'll throw up our 1A projections as they currently sit right now. So that gives you a view of what we have here. And, right now, taking a look at some of these games, you see like GCMS, we talked about them. They're sitting at 7-2. I'm DMAC sitting at 5-4. Knoxville is another team. They got to win some games, but they're projected to get in right now. They too would be projected in at 5-4. Obviously, the number 1 seed right now is projected to be Stockton at 9-0. They would be playing Marquette, or Stark County, at 5-4. Marquette is down here in this lower left-hand corner. They are 6-3. They would be playing GCMS on the road in that first round game, provided that they do win the next 3 weeks in a row. But that 1A playoff field definitely starting to look good. Taking a look on the south side, you got Arthur Lovington right now projected at the 1 seed at 9-0. And like we talked about, there could be some shifting there to where Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond could move out, provided some of these teams get in. But they would have to get some upsets to make that happen, of course. Dupo would be the host against Athens. Obviously, Athens would actually be the favorite in that one. Looking at the WIVC, obviously we would have Carrollton there at the 13 seed playing a KC team. Brown County there at the 5 seed. Camp Point Central would be the 2 seed. And if Allah moves out, Camp Point Central is going to move into that 1 spot, which they would be happy about. Calhoun sitting in that 7 spot. Greenfield Northwestern in the 10 spot. That would be an interesting first round matchup.
Don't know if my heart can take another one of those.
And then you got Tuscola sitting there, of course. Can't ever leave Tuscola out. When they get in the playoffs, they're usually pretty good.
The WIVC nemesis.
So that will be a lot of fun. Taking a look at Class 2A, we'll pull this one up here. And in Class 2A, the 1 seed right now would be Rock Ridge at 9-0. Listening to Greg and Mitch this past week on View from the West, they stated that they don't see Rock Ridge beating Monmouth Roseville. Right now, projections state otherwise, and of course that can obviously change. But when you take a look at both sides of the division, the Track Rock and the Track Mississippi, the Track Rock, the smaller division, is actually overall stronger than the Track Mississippi. With that, though, you got to start looking at some score comparisons. Monmouth Roseville beat Princeton in a similar fashion that Newman beat Princeton in. Rock Ridge also beat Princeton by 2 scores. But then Rock Ridge pretty much, they didn't throttle Newman, but they kind of did. They won it by 3 touchdowns. I think that game next week, Rock Ridge and Monmouth Roseville, will be a big matchup. Obviously, it would be both front runners for the track divisions, Mississippi and Rock. Both teams are projected to be undefeated at 7-0 going into that matchup. So it'll be a lot of fun because, I remember listening to Mitch and Greg at the beginning of the year. They thought that the week 1 game, Newman versus Princeton, was going to be the all-track conference championship. And lo and behold, it's going to be between Rock Ridge and Monmouth Roseville instead. But going to be a lot of fun to see that play out. Westville obviously would be the 2 seed at 9-0. Farmington, the 5 seed at 9-0. El Paso Gridley, the 4 seed at 9-0. Some teams to watch out for. You got Ridgeview Lexington also down there at 9-0 at the 3 seed. Obviously, Wilmington sitting there at the 6 seed. I've already had one guy say, there's no way Wilmington's going to be the 6 seed. It's like, dude, do you understand how, playoff seedings work? If Rock Ridge were to lose, then that could, boost Wilmington up. But I can't remember who's got more playoff points without pulling it all back up again. But obviously there's still that off shot that Wilmington's could still get bumped into 3A too, so that's very much alive and well. 2A North is going to be pretty interesting. I would be intrigued if this were to play out and EPC were to play Ridgeview Lexington. I'd like to see that one play out. with EPC getting in at 5-4. That'd be a lot of fun. On the south
That's a fun
side,
second round matchup.
yeah. On the south side of that, Vandalia would be the 1 seed at 9-0. And then you got Maroa Forsyth at the 2 seed at 9-0. Johnson City 3 seed at 9-0. And then you got a couple different players in there. Obviously, Pena would be the 4 seed at 8-1. Right now, I got Trenton Westland projected to be the 16th seed at 5-4. That was a newcomer to the projections this week, which kind of shifted the 2A bracket down and pushed Stillman Valley back up into the 3A projections. Nashville sitting there at the 10 seed with Carlinville. I think Nashville is a lot better than Carlinville this year. You got DuQuoin down there at the 6 seed. They would be playing West Frankfort potentially. DuQuoin obviously looking to make noise too. So it's 2A. If you get rid of if Wilmington were to get bumped up into 3A, I think that is going to open up the door more for like Rockridge and Farmington. Those 2 teams right now would be the next 2 highest rated teams along with El Paso Gridley. Those 3 teams would be the favorites then coming out of the north. And then on the south side, obviously Maroa Forsyth would be there. And then you're also looking at Johnston City as well. So and Vandalia. Those 3 teams there would be the favorites coming out of that south side. So again, just some stuff to look at as we continue to project out the playoffs week by week. Obviously, the closer we get to the playoffs, the more accurate it becomes. And then in Class 3A, right now, Richmond Burton would be the 1 seed at 9-0. Byron would be the 2 seed at 9-0. I think the one thing that everybody was looking for is where's Richmond Burton at? Where's Byron at? Where's IC Catholic at? And right now, IC Catholic would be projected at the 8 seed on the other side of the bracket than Byron. Likewise, they would have a potential second round matchup with Richmond Burton. That'll be interesting. Down on the bottom half of that north bracket there on the left side, you have Dupac projected at 7-2, playing host to 7-2 Monmouth Roseville with the 11 seed. And like I said, that's one of the things too. Like Monmouth Roseville, even at 7-2, would be the 11 seed compared to a 6 seed for Dupac with the same record. That just goes to show you the strength of schedule difference on the quality of teams that Monmouth Roseville has played compared to what Dupac has. Now, albeit Monmouth Roseville has their final 2 games are against Rockridge and Newman, so they're going to get some good points there. But the middle part of their schedule outside of, Princeton still has to gather some wins because right now they're only sitting at 3, but they are projected to win their next 3. So that will give Monmouth Roseville a few more points as well. But, there's so many down teams there in that Mississippi division that aren't getting them the points that would give them a higher seed. But if they do win those games against Rockridge and Newman, now we're talking about another 9-0 team, and they would most likely slide into that 4 seed instead and then be on the top side of that bracket, which would definitely change how some of this stuff lays out. Dupac then, too, would drop to the 7 seed and could potentially see another second round matchup with Byron. So, and let's not be remiss, you got Chicago Hope in there that's starting to make some noise. Bishop McNamara is right there at the 4 seed, currently at 8-1. Those 2 are still undefeated. They have to play each other yet. Hope is the favorite, but of course, I'm hearing from my Bishop McNamara fans that I've all of a sudden attracted, and they're supposed to be the second coming of Jesus. So we'll see how that plays out. Be interested to see that. But one of the things that I want to note out too is on the right side of this bracket here, Bloomington Central Catholic is the 1 seed. They were in the north side on last week's projections. This week they moved to the south side. And if that were the case, that definitely puts all of the Illini Prairie teams together, which we've talked about with a lot of intensity this year on those Illini Prairie teams. And, what I find interesting too is that you're seeing teams in the 6, 7, 8. The 5, 6, 7, and 8 spots would all be host teams with 6-3 records. So that 3A South has a lot of teams that have been very battle tested against other teams, but obviously BCC and Tolono Unity would be the top 2 teams coming out. And look at that. They've already played each other this year, and they're projected to be the 1 and 2 seeds. So they would not get that proverbial rematch until the semifinals. And if that were to play out, I would think that would be a great thing to see, simply for the fact that right now, arguably, they have to be the 2 best teams in 3A South. But let's not forget about that team down here in the right-hand corner at the 11 seed in Althoff Catholic. While they're projected to get in at 5-4, a 5-4 record and 11 seed is just unreal. And
don't forget the 10 seed at 5-4.
yeah. Well, it's Robinson. I'm not worried about them. They come out of the lick, so that's the Little Illini Conference for those that don't understand what lick is. And let's just say that not a lot of strength coming out of that. I mean, we watched what happened when their last team made it to state, which was Mount Carmel, and they gave up 69 points to Byron. So, and they don't have the playmaker like they had before. But regardless, Althoff Catholic is still going to be a nemesis in this 3A South bracket as well. And of course, my Belleville friends have all stated that, Althoff Catholic is going to be in the playoffs and they're going to be the favorite in 3A South and yada, yada, yada. We'll see. They're definitely a team I'm keeping an eye on, though. Let's be honest. They are going to be pretty stout. And
they got talent.
They do. And rightfully so. They're in the right bracket this year. And they don't have 13 recruits on their team for the Metro East All-Stars. But
the Metro East All-Stars.
that's why I nicknamed them last year. But anyway, that gives you a look at the brackets. Obviously, a lot of things can change. It's going to be a lot of fun. Like we talked about already, there's a lot of stuff that can come up that can definitely change this. We'll be fabricating for the next 3 weeks. And when we get to our playoff show on October 25th, obviously we're going to be talking about our projected bracket that night before the brackets release. So we're going to be talking about what we see as proverbial matchups, and then we're going to break down into what the actual matchups are when these brackets get released. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited. Looking for a new way of doing things. Obviously, we have our studio here that we can project right into YouTube. So everything's going to be the same on the viewer side of it, where you can still get into the live chat. But with it now, we can bring coaches in for live calls, which we definitely are looking at doing and anticipating a great turnout with that. We'll start putting feelers out here in the coming weeks to make sure coaches are on board, which we know that they will be. But it'll be fun. It'll be great interaction. And of course, we'll have the live chat box available for people to communicate or ask questions throughout the entire show, as we have had in years past. So definitely going to be a lot of fun. We go live at 6:30 p.m. on October 25th. So that gives us a full hour and a half of breakdown between IFA all the way to Class 3A before the brackets release. And then we start going into all of the other good stuff once those brackets release. So, Logan, you have a big week this week. Obviously, you guys survived an ugly game against rival Greenfield Northwestern, and you turn right back around into another rivalry game with Carrollton.
Yeah, big game. Just decides the WIV South title conference outright. I couldn't tell you the last time we did that. I actually do not know off the top of my head. That tells me I was a wee lad when it happens. That's what it tells me. That's exactly what it tells me. We just gotta come out, gotta start faster and get off the field. Last week in the first quarter, the first drive of the game for Greenfield, they took off 10 minutes and 54 seconds off the clock on like a 16 play drive or something. It was nuts. It was a long drive, which credit to them. They did a lot of things well last week, and they scared the crap out of me. So Ty Bowman, just like his dad, great player. Ty was phenomenal against us, as well as the whole team and staff. So I'm going to tip my hat to them. Against Carrollton, I couldn't think of a better narrative to push. Obviously, last year we had the 10-0 loss. I'll own it. They beat us 10-0. They beat us straight up. We had a bazillion fumbles, and they probably forced like half of them, maybe a little over half of them. I can't remember. 2 years ago when they played at our place, coming in undefeated and were stink dranked, it was a 61-0 win for the Warriors. So obviously both teams have sore memories in their mouth still. Obviously Carroll wants to avenge the 2 years ago game, and we want to avenge last year, and it'll decide who gets the WIFEC South title outright. So I couldn't think of a better narrative.
So real quick, we touched on it at the beginning of the show about Camp Point Central. Let's hear about some of the kids we want to listen about, get more familiar with. Obviously, it's not guaranteed that they're going to get there, but at the same time, we hear about your Calhoun team, and rightfully so, because obviously they're a team we're keeping an eye on, and we've started to hear more about Brown County. But let's get to know the Panthers of Camp Point Central.
Let me get their game log from this week popped up. I can just name a couple kids offhand. I remember. Obviously, there's Kale Niekamp, the Caden's brother. He's a quarterback this year. He's a sophomore, but he's a good player. He played last year on their team. I think he played in quarterback in spurts whenever Elijah would go to fullback, and I know he played at safety against us last year. He had a key interception against us in the second round playoff game. Obviously, there's Curtis Riggs. There's Zach Ware at running back. Marco Rodriguez, the running back, and all-world special team kicker. He's a game changer for them out there, as people who come to be familiar with them. There's also Jasper Flesner, who was their workhorse last week. We talked about him some, but last week he had 20 carries for 110 yards, and Camp Point had 39 carries in total for 242 yards. He was also responsible for 3 out of their 4 touchdowns. Somebody I have not named yet. I believe his name is pronounced Colin Bochold. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm butchering it, I'm sorry. But believe he's a sophomore. He started for him last year. Plays tight end, big, strong, physical kid. Can catch the ball, can block like they won their offense. So they got some dynamic playmakers, obviously, up front. I don't remember exactly who all came back from last year. It's been a while. But just some guys that I'm looking at defensively with numbers. And I'm assuming they're going to play offense as well, was Jack Weiss, Chase Barner, and Dominic Jansen. So just a couple guys on their team that I'm going to give credit for. They're really good. They are good every year. Even when people think, is this when kind of like with Lena, is this the year that someone else cements themselves? Even though Stockton has started to do that, it always seems to come back around to Camp Point. So just some guys to watch out for them.
Yeah, it should definitely be a lot of fun. I know I'm getting more and more excited as we move towards the playoffs. And, this is the first time in a while where I've been almost pretty excited every week. Like, there's been a couple years here in recent years where it's been like, okay, there's no good games. What game am I going to go to? But like this year, it's like every game just, you can find a game almost every week that's going to have substantial impact on what's going on in the playoff picture, in for our side, the conference race or conference contention. And I don't know, there's so much going on around the state. it's been really a lot of fun to watch it all happen and break down. And
There's
you
a lot
know,
of parity this year.
there is. And when you start to look at, I always call, the playoff 5 weeks like the best 5 weeks of the year, because in my opinion they really are. But when you get to that playoff show and you get to start talking about actual playoff teams, it just broadens it even more, because there's just so much excitement around it, and it there's just a special uniqueness that high school football has over every other sport, especially here in the state of Illinois. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. I'm smiling. I can't even take the smile off my face. That's how excited I am.
It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously we have our week 9 matchup with Camp Point, or not Camp Point,
Brown
Brown
County.
County. Yeah,
Don't worry, I got
it's
you.
a force of habit. I'm so used to. We've played them 5 times in 3 years. I'm used to playing them on our schedule. So there's obviously that. This week is a big game. Like I said, conference title outright for us. It's exciting. It's our homecoming. I haven't been TP'd yet. That's nice. I'm sure that's gonna happen at some point. Don't know when, but I fully expect it to happen. It's gonna come within the next 2 days. So I'm sure that'll happen. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. This fine trophy has been sitting in the back of behind me all week. For those of you who don't know, I coach JFL. This is our lightweight trophy from this year. Our young guys, our 5th and 6th graders, went a perfect 9-0. They scored, what was it? I'm thinking 200. I think it was 240 points and gave up 24 points all year. So, and I watched these. I'll talk just to rant about my 6th graders. I watched these guys as 4th graders struggle, win like 1 game, maybe 2. I can't remember. It was 1 or 2. Last year, same thing happened. They went 2-5, but they made the consolation as the 8th seed. And in the middle of the year, something flipped, and we won the consolation as the lowest seed. And then to come into this year and outside of the 2 Q&D games where we beat them by 14-0 and 8-0, really just kind of dominate the whole year. I was proud of those kids, so I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out them. I know you saw the aftermath on my mom's Facebook with the trophy in my bed. I'll bring it up. I'll wear it. It was a fun night, but yeah, I'd be remiss if I did not bring this up.
Somebody got a little sauced.
I got a little excited.
Yeah, no, you should. It's awesome. It's great to see. Obviously, when you have success at the lower levels, it starts to breed into the upper levels. And, we've watched Calhoun definitely rise up here the last few years. I
Winning's
still remember
contagious.
that first time with West Clocky and their upset of Tuscola back in 2016, and then the semifinal loss to St. Teresa. I remember it vividly, because that was a shocker, because I believe they were 5-4 that year, weren't they?
6-3.
6
Got in
and
at
3.
6-3. They played. I remember it. Arcola. This is my freshman year, so they went back up to Arcola after playing them the previous year in the first round with that super squad of Arcola. Beat them 8-0 on a forced fumble. I can't remember who forced it, but it fell right into Wes's hands. Full sprint to ice it in the 4th quarter. I think there wasn't a lot of time left. They played Red Hill the next round, beat them 22-0. Then came the quarterfinal classic between Tuscola, which I still remember that. I went up there. I found your show at the time. I was just a wee freshman. And I remember you guys said Tuscola big. I remember it. I remember it. I actually think you guys picked against, if I remember right, I think you guys in that entire playoff run up until the St. T game when Shane picked Calhoun, I think you guys picked against Calhoun every single time. I remember it so vividly. I was like, oh my God, how could they?
Well, I mean, Arcola wasn't far off of a state championship.
No, they weren't. That was a good
won
Arcola
it the year
team.
before, and they had like you said, they had a lot of returners. I mean, the official kid had graduated, but they still had some good returners.
It was a good Arcola team.
Yeah. And, obviously Tuscola, I can't remember the quarterback's name.
Caleb Williams is actually what I think it was.
But they had a good team there. Dalton Hole, who we'd see the very next year in the state championship, was huge for them that year. And obviously, likewise, they got to the state championship the very next year. So, there was no reason not to pick Tuscola. And then
Oh no, I'm just
obviously
giving you
St. T
crap.
got you then. But hey, that was a hell of a run. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
Um,
That quarterback's name was Caleb Williams, by the way, with a K.
I did. We grew a lot of fan bases that year, and then of course the following year. And one of the biggest fan bases we grew was Gibson City, Melvin Sibley. That was a lot of fun. And
You got a lot of outreach. You get a lot of outreach from everyone from a lot of other conferences. Some of them like what you do, and I think you do a great job. I like what you do. That's why I'm on here.
well, I appreciate
obviously,
it.
Obviously,
it's
there are others who are like, "What's this guy talking about? He doesn't know anything."
Oh yeah. Others think otherwise, but that's all right. It's been great, obviously, because while the whole notion was just to bring more exposure to the NUIC, ultimately it's really expanded into, hey, let's just cover the whole state. We're gonna still cover the NUIC, obviously, but we're gonna put more eyes across the whole state. And with that, it's developed a lot more relationships with a lot of coaches across the state, which has definitely been a lot of fun. On top of that, talking to different people in different realms of media across the state has also been a lot of fun. And then you get a bunch of the football knowers across the state, which definitely, those are even more fun conversations because you start to build different friendships. And, if you take a look, everybody rips our state rankings all the time. But if you want my honest opinion, show me a time in the last 10 years where our state rankings haven't lived up to the trueness of what they are. You're not going to find one, because the panel that we put together is people from around the state. It's not NUIC based. The only one that's NUIC based is me. But that's from this. I mean, being able to reach out to different people has developed those relationships across the state, which brings a much broader and more expansive product. And then, of course, the collaboration with you and Logan, and then, a huge shout out to Mitch and Greg at View from the West. I mean, obviously, they took something that I had started and they've created something similar, but man, they do an awesome job covering their areas. And then on top of that, we're starting to see other people start to pop up, and it's been a lot of fun. I see some people say, oh, well, you're competing against such, and I never look at it as competition. I think it's fun that we just get to bring more energy and excitement around small school football across the state, because for the longest time, all we had is what you'd see on the sports channels with, you're always seeing 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A, 8A. And it's like, okay, well, what about us? What about us little guys? Like, we love football. We're excited about our towns and our communities and everything else. And I love it. I'm actually already in the process of adding 2 more people to our panels for next year, on top of our 8 panel members coming back for next year. So it's fun, it's exciting. And when you have people that actually like to look at small school football and they look at it from a clear lens, not a colored lens, it just makes it more pure. And that's what I want. I want a pure product that actually looks at everything without bias. And I know a lot of people say I put bias into the NUIC because of it, which is far from the truth. I mean, yes, I cover the NUIC. Yes, I am very proud of our conference. I love our conference. Obviously, we started up NUIC All Access, myself and Jay Doyle last year, and that's been a lot of fun getting that off the ground to kind of coincide with what we do here with NUIC football. But then there we bring it out to a much larger level, covering all sports across the conference. And yeah, now I'm just going on a soapbox, but it's been so much fun being able to cover the talent that we have, but then on top of it to gain the exposure for a lot of small kids across the state and bring the conversation to a level where you have people coming in from around the state to watch different things. And that's what it's about. And that's what's been the most fun is now we have outlets for small school football to get the recognition that they deserve around the state. So, hats off to Mitch and Greg, what they're doing. I talked to Tyson Graves down at Central Illinois. He's doing a great job. He just picked it up last year and his stuff's starting to explode. Talked to a guy out of the north central Illinois part of the state as he's starting to get something going for IVHSS as well. And then of course you got the guys down in Johnson City doing TP Talk, which just follows everything Johnson City, but it's still cool because it's getting stuff out there.
Yep, for sure. Like I said, I like this. It gives me an excuse to talk football and ramble. Obviously, like you said, it's NUIC, but mainly NUIC based. But the hope for spoiler, the hope for next year is I can get a little more WIVC worked in. I got some plans. So
Yeah, that's the
I got some
plan.
plans. So
I've been wanting to do it for a
definitely
few
excited for it.
years.
Yep, definitely excited. Obviously, I'm gonna wear my warrior pride every single time with pride, but this is awesome. I love it. So
All right, bud. Well, good luck this week, of course, in the big game that you have going on. Coming up next, we're going to have Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle to talk 8-man football when we return right after this. When it comes to concrete floors, don't settle for ordinary. Upgrade to extraordinary with Diedrich Epoxy. Whether it's your garage, basement, shop, or business, Diedrich Epoxy delivers durability, style, and a flawless finish built to last. Locally owned and trusted, they'll transform your space with professional epoxy flooring that stands up to whatever life throws at it. Take the first step today. Call Diedrich Epoxy at 815-239-1158 and bring strength and style to your floors. Need a fresh look? Look no further than Neff Paints, where quality meets craftsmanship. From gyms and locker rooms to living rooms and home projects, Neff Paints has you covered with top-tier products and expert service. Trusted by local pros and proud supporters of our area athletes, Neff Paints brings the durability, color, and finish that lasts. Ready to get started? Call Skylar at 815-541-7338 and take the first step toward your next transformation. Neff Paints, locally owned, community-driven, quality you can see. We just got done talking with Logan Swan. Now I'm joined by Joe Merdian and Jay Doyle as we look to talk about 8-man football. We're heading into week 7, fellas, and we've had some big matchups this past week that are beginning to take shape for that playoff picture. There's a few more big games on slate this week as well. Joe, tell us what game stuck out to you last week.
Well, first one I'll say, guys, South Beloit overall in Hebron, 49-7. I was picking South Beloit in this one. Now, Alden Hebron was without the sophomore stud running back Caleb Linneman. South Beloit led this game 27 at half and then just pulled away in the second half. So, again, Kyle and Jay, the South Beloit winning does surprise me. Definitely surprised by the score, even without Linneman. That's quite the margin there.
Yeah, that's definitely a big loss. I think for me, it was more of a shock. I was with you. I had projected South Beloit to win. I thought it'd be a little bit closer based off of comparable games, but you could also see where there could be some potential score separation. And really the biggest game that I looked at the most for that, unfortunately, was the Orangeville game because they got to meet up with both teams and there was some different score discrepancies between those two games. But South Beloit is quietly raising their stock value in a hurry.
Yeah, I think we all talk. I think, like you both said, them winning wasn't the shocker. It's sometimes how you win. But I think talent-wise, and we talked about this before, talent-wise, South Beloit can match up with anybody with their speed, their length, their athletic ability. It's just, them playing 4 quarters of mistake-free football. They did that against Alden Hebron, and they match up well with a lot of the teams, and setting up a good week 9 coming up for them in South Beloit.
Yeah. Should be a lot of fun watching South Beloit move forward. Right now, we'll talk about it later in the show, but I think me and you both have them projected at 8-1
Yep.
as of this week. And there's a real potential that they could be 9-0 going into the playoff show.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle, next game, this one sounded like a barn burner. I was able to catch it, just a little bit of this one. South Fork 58, Metro East Lutheran 50. Game was 36-30 at half, and it was tied at 50 with just under a minute to go, and South Fork got the ball and, scored there to make it 58-50 for the final. This was battle of 2 undefeated teams, 2 teams that we don't get to see as much, obviously. But South Fork, very senior-laden team, and they came away with the victory there, and just sounded like one heck of a ball game there on Friday night.
Yeah. Do you have the stats on that game?
Well, I do know George Bailey, the running back for
Kyle's
South
guy.
Fork.
My guy.
What's
That's
that?
that's Kyle's new guy.
Yeah,
Is their running back.
I'm on the George Bailey bandwagon right now, man. That guy is
I think we all should be. He had
In seeing
he had-
pictures, we need a age check on him though. But yeah, he's a man amongst man looking man.
He definitely looks like a men among boys right now. That's for sure. But man, he's had some big numbers.
26 carries, 324 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Coming off the week before against unbeaten St. Anne, where he had 300 yards rushing, and I believe it was 5 touchdowns. So the last 2 weeks against undefeated teams, Bailey's ran for 624 yards and 12 touchdowns. So I think we know who the ponies are going to ride into the playoffs, guys.
He won't be shaving that beard anytime soon. That's for sure.
Let that thing grow longer. Let's see some big facial hair come out.
Yeah.
Thanks for Derek Paris down at Channel 1450 for going out to South Fork this week and getting us some more video information on South Fork ahead of the War on 104 game this week between them and Pawnee. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And of course, it's a Saturday matinee, well, Saturday night game, really. But 6 p.m. kickoff there in Kincaid. That's going to be a ton of fun.
All right, and then, Kyle, of course, the last game I want to talk about from Week 6, it was our game of the week right here for NUIC football. Milledgeville, 54-28, went over West Carroll. A game that was 54-14 at halftime. So it was running clock in the second half there. Milledgeville scored first. West Carroll came back and scored, made it 8-6 in favor of Milledgeville. But then Milledgeville, next thing you knew, they're up 24-6 before he even blinked, and there was still 7 minutes to go in the first quarter. And the rest was history.
Yeah.
Obviously Milledgeville's the team that we've been talking about all year, and rightfully so. They got the big win in week 1 over Amboy, coming back from a halftime deficit to pull that one out and keep Amboy off the scoreboard in the second half while doing it. With that, they have been just electric all over the place. But West Carroll, again, taking a look at how Milledgeville played with Polo and the defensive effort that Polo put up against Milledgeville to hold them to 28 points. And then West Carroll's effort against Polo as well. You thought that this game would be a little bit closer than what it was, but Milledgeville, and we'll talk about it here later in the show, they had some big performances from pretty much all of their big-time players across the entire team.
Yeah, for Milledgeville, they just got to stay healthy right now, right? I mean, they got everything rolling, keep everybody healthy moving forward, get into the playoffs playing good football. And, it's kind of, they're in that tough position. You want to stay fresh, but you don't want to get guys hurt. You get your 40-point running clock and you move forward. They got a big week coming up in week 9. That's going to shape a lot of things we're going to talk about later. But, by far, Milledgeville from week 1 to now has been the cream of the crop and has played great football, not just offensively, but defensively.
All right, let's take a look at our Byron Wealth Management scoreboard from last week. There you have it. West Carroll, Milledgeville winning that one 54-28, like we just talked about. Polo defeating Orangeville 54-8. River Ridge over AFC 52-12, and we thought that game would be a little bit closer as well. And then Amboy winning by the point spread. They're 68-point favorite, winning 68-0. How about
Good call,
that?
Kyle.
Nice call on that, Mr. Kampmier. Wow.
So that gives you a look at the scoreboard from this past week. Now let's take a look at our Volkert Design standings. We're going to start in the Northwest. And currently, right now, we have Milledgeville on top, 4-0 in conference play, 6-0 overall, followed by Polo at 3-1 and 5-1. West Carroll and Orangeville are tied at 2-2. Of course, West Carroll has the game advantage over Orangeville in the head-to-head. West Carroll 4-2 overall. The Broncos 2-4. River Ridge is 1-3, 2-4. AFC is 0-4, 1-5. And let's take a look at that West Division next. And there you have it right there. Amboy and West Central still on top, tied 4-0 in conference play. Both are 5-1 overall. They are going to be meeting up here shortly down the road. That will be a big, impactful game. FCW sitting right behind them, and FCW, they still have to play West Central. That one loss is already to Amboy. FCW and West Central, I believe they play this week, isn't it?
Yes, it's at FCW.
Yeah, so that'll be a great matchup there in the West Division. Galva sitting at 2-2, and I did not update their overall record, but they are they 2-4 or 3-3?
Yeah, Galva's 2-4.
Yeah, okay. Ridgewood is 2-2, 3-3. BPC 1-3, 1-5. Peoria Heights 1-4, 1-5, and West Prairie is sitting there at 0-4, 0-6. We'll move into that Northeast Division where we saw South Beloit with the big win over Alden Hebron Olsha. They are 4-0, 6-0. Alden Hebron. The Giants are 2-1, 5-1. Hiawatha 2-2, 4-2. They are going to meet up with Christian Life this week for the second time this season. Could have taken the forfeit, but they're going to play a game, which is good to see. Christian Life is 1-3, 2-4 overall, and then Harvest Westminster Christian rounds out the bottom at 1-3, 1-5. The South Division, oh baby. Let's get to that South Division. South Fork and Pawnee meet this week. The War on 104. Both teams 2-0, 6-0. Metro East Lutheran a game behind at 1-1, 5-1. Martinsville's also just a game behind at 1-1, but 3-3 overall. Oblong and Pal Hut are both 0-2. Oblong 2-4 overall, with Pal Hut at 0-6. And then let's move into the East Division here to wrap her up on the standing side. MCP and St. Anne are both 2-0, 5-1 overall. Unity Christian and St. Thomas More are both 1-1, 2-4 overall. And then Merdian and Blue Ridge are both 0-2, 1-5 overall. So there's a look at our IFA standings as we get set to move into the breakdown. Let's talk about that first game. It's River Ridge 2-4 at number 2 Polo 5-1. Last week, River Ridge beat AFC 52-12. Polo beating Orangeville 54-8. Caden Bauer had a huge game for the Wildcats. 20 attempts, 288 yards with 2 touchdowns. Then he completed 2 of 5 passes for 108 yards and another 2 touchdowns. to help lead the Wildcats over the Raiders in that big game. Jaden Culver had 29 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns plus a 98-yard receiving touchdown. Hamish Bowden had 20 yards rushing and a touchdown and led the defensive effort with 11 tackles. Joe?
Yeah, so, River Ridge, a nice win for them, gets them to 2-4. They're obviously going to be a heavy underdog this week at Polo, but Kyle, they got a chance to win their last 2 games and finish this season with 4 wins. And I think, if you would have told me that year River Ridge is going to win 4 games, I think, you'd be okay with that if you're a River Ridge fan. Now they're going to, even if they go 4-5, they're going to miss the playoffs. They don't have enough points. But again, a guy like Caden Bauer, like you said, 28 carries for 288 yards, a couple of touchdowns, another 100 yards passing. He's definitely a threat. Definitely somebody Pole's got to be concerned with, as well as Hamish Bowden. So, River Ridge, they'll come to Pole, they'll play hard, but I think Pole's just way better on both sides of the ball on the line than River Ridge is. I think that'll be the big difference in the ball game there.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Obviously, we saw Mercer Mumford go 11 carries for 174 yards and 4 touchdowns, added 2 receptions for another 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. So 6 total touchdowns by Mumford. JT Stevenson was 2 for 3 passing for those 133 yards and 2 scores. And then Esteban Salinas added 62 yards rushing plus a touchdown. So obviously everything for Polo ran through Mumford this past week, and you would expect him to start getting more up to speed with being the focal receiver, back, everything coming from Polo out of, much like Gus was last year, his older brother for the Marcos.
All the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought, and Jay, I don't know how much film you guys had watched on Polo leading up to this, but I thought Polo on Friday night against Orangeville, that was the most fundamentally sound game they'd played all season. They didn't have many mistakes. I don't know if they had maybe 1 or 2 penalties, but they hit well, they tackled well, they blocked well, just from start to finish. Even the Polo, JV squad, the guy in the end, those guys were playing hard and hitting and everything. So I thought Polo just their most fundamentally mistake-free game from start to finish all season.
Yeah, I got to witness it.
I wasn't rubbing it in, Jay. I was.
I got to see it from
being
close
honest.
up. It looked exactly how you described it. So, what do you got for a point spread there, Kyle?
All right. Polo enters this game as a 48-point favorite. My projection, Polo 54-6. Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, I think I'm right in about that same ballpark. Yeah, I think River Ridge gets on the board in this one, maybe a couple times. I'll say 58-12.
Those are your projections, right? We gotta make sure for people we know what are projections and what are not projections.
Yes.
So we don't get all crazy people online, so they know what's going on.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna stop that, Jay.
Yeah, you can't stop it.
Hey, that's all right.
Everybody takes everything personally anymore, so
We
you got to be careful.
We put it out there for the fodder, and boy, do we get the fodder.
Yes.
All right, AFC at number 5, West Carroll is our next game. AFC enters at 1-5. West Carroll is 5-1. West Carroll losing last week to Milledgeville 54-28. AFC, of course, we just talked about losing to River Ridge 52-12. Aiden Buckles, again, big loss, but big game for Buckles. 27 attempts, 160 yards with 2 touchdowns. Also added a 31-yard passing touchdown. Roger LeBourne had 2 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. And then Winter Harrington was 3 for 13 passing for 58 yards and a score there. Give us a little bit about what you see on AFC side, Joe, and then we'll talk about the preview of the game.
Yeah, so AFC last week against River Ridge in the loss. Chase Neer, 11-22 passing, 142 yards and a touchdown. Landon Hudson also had 3 of 5 passing for 37 yards and a touchdown. Kyler Wilstead, the running back, he had a real nice game. 19 carries, 161 yards and a TD. And then he also caught 4 passes for 118 yards and a TD. So big game from Wilstead there for the Raiders. Kyle Goldman also had 4 catches for 43 yards. Guys, I'll say about AFC, they started the year out, had that nice one over West Prairie, and then they had a tough loss 18-6 in week 2 to West Central, which is still looking like a really good, hard-fought loss for them. But then things have kind of just unraveled since. And I know some of the competition's been pretty good, likes of pulling West Carroll and that. But, AFC seems to be struggling a little bit here as things wind down. Guys, West Carroll sitting at 4-2. All 4 games they've won, they've shut out their opponent. I'm predicting another shutout this week for the Thunder to get to 5-2.
Yeah, that's pretty good there. West Carroll enters as a 62-point favorite. Jay, you've got to see both these teams. Obviously, I'm assuming you're going to lean towards West Carroll as well.
Yeah, I mean, West Carroll's going to come back from their loss. But, going back from that, last week was one where we wanted to see where West Carroll was as a team and where they got to grow from. I think they've seen that up close and personal with Milledgeville. They get to have an AFC game where they can work on some things and move forward. But yeah, I mean, West Carroll is a much more sound and physical, and just have a bunch of players on their team that AFC is banged up a little bit, but I'll give them this. They got Buck Holt's a great running back, and they fight and they play hard, and a credit to them that they're still showing up every Friday and Saturday.
Wilstead.
Yeah, my fault.
Nope, that's all right.
Hey,
but yes.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
Here's a quirky stat for you guys. Now, I've mentioned this on my podcast, Spotlight podcast, a few times this season, but West Carroll, since they've joined 8-man, they've played 17 games. They've lost 5 to Polo and Milledgeville. They're undefeated against the rest of the league.
That is interesting.
So those are the two teams.
Will that hold up?
They've never played Amboy. All right. So they've never played Amboy, never played Ridgewood, some of the other teams you'd consider near the top every year. So West Carroll, they know where they know where they're at, and they know where they need to get to. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there quick.
Well, in like the broad scheme of things, that's what you look for in the teams that are trying to make a name for themselves. We talked earlier of South Beloit doing what they did against Alden Hebron, and they're going to have that week 9 matchup. You don't want to play too far ahead, but they're going to have that week 9 matchup against Polo. Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where they're. I mean, when you want to step up with the teams that are known for making a run in 8-man when it counts in the playoffs, you have to you see where you're at when you play them head to head, and that was the big thing with where was West Carroll going into Milledgeville, and that's why the South Beloit game versus Alden Hebron was kind of the shocker for us earlier, and now they're going to have that week 9 matchup going into the playoffs. That's going to be a great week 9, but West Carroll has to learn from what they get and recoup. Because, yeah, you can beat now AFC, but that Milledgeville game in the back of your head is going to be there where you got running clocked, in the first half by them.
Yeah.
Which happens to a lot of teams against Milledgeville.
It does.
But,
Right.
but if you're one of those teams that want to take it to that next level where Milledgeville and Polos and Amboys are at, you can't get running clocked in the first half.
Hey, and also, guys, West Carroll, they'll have that big week 8 matchup where they go to South Beloit. That'll be a fun game as well.
Yeah.
So West Carroll, get AFC this week, and then get yourselves ready for that big game at South Beloit in week 8 for the Thunder.
Yeah, that's going to be
a
big week 8 and 9 then for South Beloit. I forgot that
they'll
West
play
Carroll and then back
at Polo.
Hey, they might be the feature on our game of the week those 2 weeks.
There you go.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, I have West Carroll winning this one 56-6, so we'll be right back right after this. Thinking about buying or selling a home? Trust the team that knows this area better than anyone. Best Realty. Whether you're looking for your first home, upgrading for more space, or relocating, Best Realty is committed to making the process smooth, honest, and successful. With deep roots in our local communities and a track record of results, Best Realty isn't just in the business of homes, they're in the business of helping families take the next step. Best Realty, local experts, real results, real people. Call today and move with confidence. If you or your loved one has been injured, you need someone who will fight for you. Reese and Reese Injury Attorneys have been serving our community for over 40 years, standing up for people when they need it most. They know how to handle the insurance companies and get results, so you can focus on healing. Don't face it alone. Call Reese and Reese Injury Attorneys today at 815-968-8851 and let their experience work for you.
All right, the next game we're going to talk about is the number 1 Missiles. Coming in at 6-0, they play host to the Broncos of Orangeville, who enter at 2-4. Milledgeville winning 54-28 against West Carroll. Orangeville losing to Polo 54-8. Hayden Schofield had 19 attempts for 62 yards and a touchdown. Brock Copperud was 2 for 8 passing for 53 yards. And then Jackson Grillo and Oscar Bissell each had a reception each, 29 yards and 24 yards respectively. And, taking a look at the Milledgeville side of things, Kyson Francis, 7 for 11 passing, 149 yards and 3 touchdowns. Then we had Connor Johnson with 3 receptions, 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Spencer Nye getting it done both on the ground and through the air. 3 receptions, 63 yards, 2 touchdowns, 13 attempts, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And our Neff Paints IFA Player of the Week.
With a great name, by the way.
Goes to Carter Livingood, 22-yard passing touchdown. Defensively had 7 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, a sack, a forced fumble, a fumble recovered, a blocked punt, and he was on the offensive line for all them rushing yards and passing yards to help lead the way for the Missiles in this big win. So congratulations to Carter Livingood being named our Neff Paints IFA Player of the Week. Joe?
Yeah, he dominated this game on the defensive side of the football, and very well deserved. Congratulations to Carter on the Player of the Week there. But again, guys, Milledgeville just so tough on both sides of the ball, and one thing that makes them so dangerous on that offensive side of the ball, you can't just stop one guy. You got Francis quarterback, you got Connor Johnson, Spencer Nye, Evan Shank, who we didn't even mention, and then Carter Livingood can play just about anywhere. He can play just about every position. So you can't just try to stop one guy when you're going to try to stop the Missiles. So, but again, they're just so well-rounded defensively, they get it done as well. And tough team to beat, for sure.
It is. Milledgeville enters as a 50-point favorite. We're just going to cut the dagger. Milledgeville projected to win 56-6. Joe, I'm assuming you're going to be in the same boat there.
I am. Well, we're going to take Milledgeville big in this one.
All right, we're going to talk about our Prairie State Game of the Week when we return right after this.
When it comes to planning for your future, you want someone you can trust. At Prairie State Investments, Mark Pfeiffer is here to help you build a plan that fits your life, your family, and your goals. Whether it's retirement, college savings, or investing wisely for tomorrow, Mark has the knowledge and local commitment to guide you every step of the way. Don't leave your future up to chance. Call Mark Pfeiffer at Prairie State Investments today at 815-668-8131 and start investing with confidence.
Our Prairie State Game of the Week takes us to the Harbor in Amboy, where the number 2 Clippers enter at 5-1. They are going to play host to Ridgewood, who enters at 3-3. Amboy beat Peoria Heights last week 68-0. Ridgewood beating Bushnell Prairie City 70-12. For the Clippers, Jose Lopez, 10 attempts, 155 yards, 3 touchdowns, just quietly doing what he's been doing all season long. Caden Heath had 4 attempts for 63 yards and a touchdown. Colt McCoy added 6 attempts for 52 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Amboy going by way of ground rather than by way of sea as they run away from Peoria Heights in this one.
Yeah, again, Kyle, I've kind of talked about their 3 running backs all season long, and they've put up numbers once again this week, combined for Lopez, Heath, McCoy combined for 6 touchdowns between the 3 of them. So, again, it's kind of been Amboy's mantra the last couple of years. They've always had 3 running backs they can give the ball to, and this year's been no different. And I think one of the things, with Amboy is, Kyle, since that Milledgeville game week 1, they've had a lot of games here where it would have been easy for them to overlook, and they have not done that. They have come out ready to go each and every Friday night. That's a sign of a well-coached team and, a sign of players that know they got a job to do every Friday night and they've been getting it done. They're definitely not overlooking anybody.
No, I mean, their closest game outside of the week 1 loss to Milledgeville came back in week 4 against state-ranked Flanagan Cornell Woodland. And it was a close first half, but you could
Right.
see Amboy slowly pulling away, and they pulled away to a 46-18 win. So the only game outside of Milledgeville where they did not put on a running clock either. And, that speaks volumes for Coach Todd Reed and FCW as well, because their only other loss on the season to this point is to Polo, who's
Polo.
ranked number 3 right now, and that was a 40-20 game.
Yeah, exactly. So FCW, they're, right there. That's, again, losses just to Polo and Amboy. So Ridgewood, Kyle, they're a team here sitting at 3-3. They're going to the Harbor this week. If they drop this one, they go to 3-4. And then they have games left at Galva, and then they host Peoria Heights. So obviously they'd be a big favorite against Peoria Heights week 9. But that Galva game at Galva week 8 could be maybe a little bit closer than what people probably would have thought at the beginning of the season. But I'll be interested to see how Ridgewood plays Amboy here in this one. They'll come ready to play, but Amboy's just so tough on both sides of the ball. It's going to be a tough task here for the Spartans.
Yeah, and you're not wrong there, because right now, I mean, before this game is played, Ridgewood would enter that game with Galva as just a touchdown favorite. So you're right. That's going to be a critical game, but that's a week away. Let's talk about this one. Obviously, It's going to be tough for them to go up against Amboy, but you got Gavin Franks, who ran for 11 attempts for 245 yards and 4 touchdowns. Crew Roberson added 2 attempts, 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Wes Sandberg had 25 yards rushing with the touchdown. And a name that we haven't seen a whole lot about this year, so I'm curious if he's been hurt and starting to come back, is Cam Stiles. He had 37 yards rushing and a touchdown. But when you look at the overall stat sheets I've been getting from Coach Anderson every week, his name hasn't really been popping out this year like it did last year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Crew Roberson as well, 84 yards and touchdown. Roberson, just a freshman. I saw him playing a JV game here earlier this week against Polo. So that Ridgewood, this kind of off subject here, but they got a real solid freshman group. So I know the Spartans are excited about what they got the next 3 years. So, but again, Gavin Franks, you got a workhorse like him, Kyle. He can keep you in a ball game. 245 yards, 4 touchdowns, and of course you got Wes Sandberg there as well. So, it'll be interesting. Remember, Ridgewood, they beat Amboy last year in the regular season. Now, granted, that was at Ridgewood. Year before, when Amboy went undefeated, Ridgewood gave them, not in the state championship, but the regular season game gave them a tough run. So, Ridgewood's going to, come into this game ready to go. They'll be prepared. They'll be ready to go. But I'm still picking Amboy in this one.
Jay, what's your thoughts?
I think Ridgewood is not playing BBC. So I see Amboy taking care of business. Ridgewood, Amboy is such a good football team. And like you said, after week 1 of what they went through, and it could have went either way with Milledgeville, that it's just one of those things that you just see Amboy's trend going up. And they'll have a tough week. You look at this week against a Ridgewood 3-3 team, but when we were looking at their schedule, I think it was week 8. If we go back to that, Kyle, week 8, West Prairie, who's sitting at 0-6, and then they'll play Biggsville week 9, who's sitting at 5-1. So, they'll have the Amboy will have a tough week this week with 3-3. I see them, as a 32-point favorite, like you have them. Should take care of business, and then next week against the West Prairie Co-op team, and then week 9 will be a big one for them to get ready for the playoffs. But Amboy is starting to hit all cylinders like they always have, and they've done it very quiet. It's like one of those things. They lost week 1, and then I think everybody kind of forgot about. They kind of maybe thought they were going to take a step back, but they have not. And it's like one of those things where we talk in other sports. It's like we joke, we talked the other week about everybody talking about every other team in volleyball, but Galena has quietly creeped themselves up in volleyball. It's kind of like Amboy in football. They lost week 1. Everybody stopped talking about them, but then you look and it's like, wow, they're going to be 8-1 and moving into the playoffs, right? And nobody's going to want to play them,
No.
because
Hey,
they've been there and done that.
and guys, Ridgewood, for whatever it's worth here, their 3 losses this year. Week 2 to Alden Hebron, 38-24. Alden Hebron pretty much dominated the second half of that game. Week 4 when they lost to West Central, that was a game that Ridgewood was up 26 at half, and West Central outscored them 30-0 the second half. And then the week 5 loss to Flanagan. Flanagan outscored them big as in the second half as well. So I'm not sure quite what's going on with Ridgewood come that second half. And those are all good teams they lost to. Alden Hebron, West Central, and FCW. Those are all playoff teams. But I just kind of find it interesting where at halftime, all 3 of those games were toss-ups or Ridgewood had the lead. They ended up losing by a more than 1 score. So I just find that interesting little tidbit there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, West Central winning against Ridgewood there in week 4 was really a surprise. Ridgewood entered that game as the favorite. And like you said, they had the 20-point lead at halftime and then let it slip away. And, you could say many things of what happened. I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate
Right.
either. But,
Same.
they're definitely a battle-tested team here. But, yeah, like Jay said, Amboy enters as like a 32-point favorite. I have it Amboy 58-12 this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think this will get to a running clock. I think it'll be somewhere in that, 48-6 type range.
All right, let's take a look around the state. Back in week 6, across our state-ranked teams in IDFA, outside of the games we've already talked about, you had Pawnee beating Oblong 35-22, which kind of raised some eyebrows this past week. South Beloit, we already talked about. South Fork, we already talked about. FCW beat West Prairie 54-14, which was pretty much expected. St. Anne, I thought that was going to be a closer game than what it was with Unity Christian. St. Anne winning that one 54-12. Unfortunately, we heard already that Unity Christian lost 3 players for the remainder of the year in that game, so that is very unfortunate for the Lions. Ultimately, it could also potentially hinder their opportunities to get to that 4th win spot and fighting for that last playoff spot as well. We'll see how they can rebound, but it's going to be a tough go losing 3 starters for the remainder of the year. West Central did pull out that win against Galva 26-18, dropping Galva to 2-4, but there again, Galva's very well tested. They've put together some tough games this year. Unfortunately, it'll probably come up a little short in their efforts, potentially. And then MCP beat Merdian 52-30. So this week, number 4 South Beloit plays Abundant Life. This is the second time these 2 teams are meeting. Earlier this year, South Beloit won that game 36-20. Surprisingly, they enter this week as a 34-point favorite. So that tells you how much they have started to elevate their status. And of course, Abundant Life, I think, enters this game with a 1-6 record.
Yeah, and that first game was at Abundant Life. This game will be at South Beloit, so there's an advantage there for the Sobos. I mean, the main thing for South Beloit in this one is you can't look ahead to weeks 8 and 9 here. You got to take care of business. You can't look ahead to West Carroll. Can't look ahead to Polo. Take care of business here against a team that you should beat.
And I was wrong about that. Abundant Life is 2-5, not 1-6. So, number 6 Pawnee playing at number 7 South Fork. Obviously, like we talked about, the war on 104. Pawnee enters the Miners Cup, which is a great looking trophy. Yep. Pawnee enters as a 2-point favorite. Whew.
Man, I'm torn on this one, Kyle. I have Pawnee winning, but man, I really don't like to go against South Fork here. I went against them 2 weeks ago and they hammered St. Anne. So I feel like Pawnee's defense has been a little bit better this year. But the way South Fork's got that run game going with George Bailey,
Oh,
I
the
mean,
dude.
Kyle's guy.
he's a dude, all right. Man, it's just so close. I mean, the 2-point spread, Kyle, that's pretty fair, I would say. I mean, this thing could go either way. But you've got to think the winner of this game. Now, Pawnee will still have a Week 8 game at Metro East. The winner of this game has a real good shot at the 2 seed in the playoffs, guys. Possibly the 1 seed if Milledgeville would slip up Week 9. So there's more on the line here than just the Warren 104 in the Miners Cup. You're possibly looking at the South Conference Championship and possible 2 seed or even possibly the 1 seed in the playoffs. So, these two schools 10 miles apart. It's a Saturday night 6:00 game. There'd be a lot of people at this one, and it's. I think it's going to live up to the hype for sure.
Well, the South Fork team, the senior class, has never beat Pawnee, so there's no better time than to do it this week at Jack Hanlon Stadium. But I think it's going to come down to about a touchdown. It very well could come down to who has possession of the ball last. I do have Pawnee winning 38-30, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the other way around and George Bailey has another huge game to continue his ride for the Ponies. Jay?
I don't know how you go against your guy, Kyle. I mean, in big picture of things, they're playing for so much that in Week 7, and that's how you want it. I mean, you have 2 top 10 teams in the state, right? You have a big game for conference, but also, everybody keeps talking whether Milledgeville would get the 1 or the 2. Let's face it, everybody's looking to where Milledgeville's at and wants to be on the other side of the bracket than them. So if you have a way of getting the 1 and taking that away and seeing Milledgeville take the 2, perfect. If you lose that game and Milledgeville wins, then that is what it is, and you're both 9-0. But there's so much that goes into this game that it's a coin flip, really. I mean, whoever this is the coach talk, right? Whoever has the penalties and turnovers are going to be the thing that come down to it, and who can win the line of scrimmage. And I have not seen enough of either. Who do you guys see? Because at the end of the day, in any football game, we talk about it all the time, whether it be 11-man or 8-man. And we talked about when Stockton upset Lee Wynn, the whole talk was line of scrimmage. They won the line of scrimmage that day. Who do you see winning the line of scrimmage? And then that would be that'd be your safe pick.
Well, I think this one goes back to what we talked about in the preseason, Joe, was, Pawnee has a slight advantage. They got to see what it was like going up against an Amboy team last year in the semifinal. Right. And that did not go the way they had anticipated it going. Then they schedule a Week 0 scrimmage with them this year. And granted, that's just a scrimmage. But still, you're still playing football, and they still got their butts handed to them in the scrimmage.
Yeah.
But they also know what it's like to play a state championship caliber team. South Fork has had the experience of playing against Ridgewood, who over the past couple years have also been a state championship caliber type team. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I would say size wise on the line, it's going to be definitely in favor of South Fork. They got some big guys up front. It's going to depend on how fast they get off the ball, and of course,
and that's the different thing in 8-man than 11-man.
Right.
Sometimes bigger ain't better.
Right.
You know the saying. But it's one of those things to where, and that's where the Milledgeville, they're not overly big, but they're just overly athletic, fast, strong, and all that. It's like they check all the boxes. It's just, if whoever is going to win the turnover battle, and 2-point conversions are going to become a big in that game. That's where, some of that gets overlooked in big games, is your 2-point conversions, who gets them and who don't. And you can make up a lot of ground with that at the end of the game.
The other thing, guys, Pawnee, the experience of the quarterback, Caden Ward, a 3-year starter, one of the all-time leading passers in the IFA. South Fork, all their starters back except their quarterback, but, Brody Van Hooser, he's done a nice job being
Yeah.
thrown into this thing in week 2. I mean, first year playing football, what a story. Now, when you can hand the ball off to George Bailey, that helps. But Van Hooser's his completion percentage, Kyle, I don't have in front of me, but it's got to be pretty darn good.
I'm sure Kyle's got that somewhere in this.
Well, that's why I'm trying to give him time. I'm trying to keep talking while he looks
don't
it
worry.
up, Jay.
Don't worry, he'll bring it up.
But seriously, though, Van Hooser's completion percentage for a first-year quarterback, first year out for football, has got to be very, very good.
64%. So, yes, his efficiency is very high.
7 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, even though Ward, is the more experienced, you still got Van Hooser playing real well. But if you're Pawnee, you're going to look for a huge game here from Caden Ward, obviously, at that quarterback position.
What's Kyle has up the Pawnee Caden Ward? What's his stats?
So Caden Ward this is without week 6 stats accumulated yet because I have not put those in. But going into last week's game, 66% completion rate, 1,261 yards, 18 touchdowns to 1 interception.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty efficient.
When I see that, I go,
check mark.
Pawnee.
Yep.
So, yeah, going to be a lot of fun there.
But I will not doubt the bearded wonder.
Yeah. I told you, I'm jumping on the he's George Bailey Express right now.
He's your badager.
Yeah.
Again, guys, these are the type of games you love in the regular season. Small school football, these teams 10 miles apart. The Miners Cup, the Warren 104, whatever you want to call it, a Saturday night 6:00 game. I mean, you got to figure both fan bases be very well represented. Just should be a great ball game.
I think you're gonna have a lot of news media outlets there, along with big crowds from both sides, because I don't think there's been a bigger game that's meant this much to both these teams collectively at the same time in a long time. So, gonna be a lot of fun. I've already heard a bunch of people that are gonna be there that aren't from the area as well. So, it's definitely gaining attraction, which is great for these two teams, but also great for 8-man football as a whole. Number 8, Alden Hebron. Olsha plays Harvest Westminster Christian. Alden Hebron is a 60-point favorite there. Number 9, FCW plays number 12, West Central. FCW, while they're 4-2 and West Central's 5-1, the Falcons are a 2-touchdown favorite going into this game.
Yeah, something tells me FCW in this one. They're at home. They can clutch a playoff spot, get to that 5th win. And you got them as a 14-point favorite. I think that's about right, Kyle. I see them winning by a couple of scores here.
Yeah, I got it
just a little bit better.
I got it projected at 36-20 on my end.
On Kyle's projection.
Yep.
36.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. I think that's a pretty solid projection.
We'll see if it holds true. Come at me if it don't. Number 10, St. Anne travels to St. Thomas More. St. Anne enters this as a 26-point favorite. I have St. Anne 48-22. Number 11, Metro East Lutheran hosts Martinsville. This is going to be a good one. Martinsville obviously not ranked, fighting for playoff livelihood. Yep. Metro East Lutheran is a 2-touchdown favorite.
Yeah, you got Metro East Lutheran coming this game at 5-1. Martinsville at 3-3, who we'll talk about here in a minute when we get to our playoff stuff. But Martinsville 3-3, fighting for their playoff lives. So they got a chance getting at 4-5. But if they could somehow steal this one, they'd get to 5 wins and solidify their spot in the playoffs. So, and it would also get them out of that 16 spot, which I have them in. So. Martinsville, you look, Kyle, they played Pawnee very tough in the beginning of the season. I know they're sitting at 3-3. I know they had some tough losses. But obviously, all against some very good teams. But, they lost Pawnee by 12 and MCP by 10. That week 1 loss to St. Anne was a little surprising. But it seems like Blue Streaks have got things turned around since then. So, And we saw Metro East obviously against a very good South Fork team, but the fact they gave it 58 points and 400 yards rushing. I think Martinsville's going to hang around on this one for sure. I'm still picking Metro East, but this could be a close one.
I agree. I would not be my projection, Metro East Lutheran 40-22, but would not be surprised if Martinsville hangs closer than that and or comes away with an upset. That'll be tall. If they do, and they do get that 5th win, that would bump them from the 16 seed up to the 14 seed just on playoff points alone.
Hey, Jay, you've probably been in this position as a coach before on both sides of this. You got a Metro East team at 5-1 that's already clinched, playing a Martinsville team at 3-3. They know their playoff hopes, lives are on the line here. And from a coaching standpoint, that can be interesting on both sides of that.
Yeah, we had it happen, a couple times to where you have that when you are that team, you're not thinking. All you're thinking is win as many games as possible to
Right.
get yourself the home win. So I don't see a letdown from Metro East in this game or, Martinsville. I mean, people play that into a fact, I think, so many times that they're like, well, they're just going to want it more because they need it more. And it's like, man, they're 17-year-old kids that are playing some
Right.
football, right? Like they sometimes don't think big picture like we think
Right.
big picture. Mom and dad may be yelling at them like, hey, you got to focus. It's a big game, right? But
Right.
at the end of the day, they're both going to be ready. It just, a lot of times, like I said, it comes down to Metro East showing up, not turning the ball over. And if they're the better team, they just can't turn the ball over. They got to play sound defense. And when they score, get your 2-point conversions and do the little things so a team can't come back and beat. And that's where it's normally won and lost, right? Like a Metro team will come in, maybe think that they're going to win, and they may score a touchdown, and then they don't get a couple 2 points, and then the Martinsville team will come in and get every 2 point. And all of a sudden you're down in the third quarter. That's, I think, when you see that happen is like after halftime when it's like closer than what it should be. And, or that's when, like, unfortunately for us, we were always like that 5-4, 4-5 team a lot of years. We only had a couple years. We were 5-1 once. One time in my career, we were sitting at 5-1. I think it was 5-1 or 4-1. And then 4 of our kids decided to get in trouble for tobacco. And we lost our whole offensive line for 3 games because they all got suspended. So that we ended up 5-4, and the rest is history. The other years, it was like we were fighting week 6, 7, 8, 9, like a Martinsville is. And I
Right.
mean, that's what you as a coach, you bring into it. You're like, hey, we got to want it more. But at the end of the day, if you just take care of your business and if you're the better team, you should win. Like if you're Metro and you are actually the 11th ranked team and you're the better team, you just got to play your game, not turn the ball over and do anything, the word dumb, in a sense of not trying to make people mad. But you just can't do dumb things. You can't
Right.
jump
Right.
off sides, fumble the football, throw bad passes, and get them intercepted to give them any type of momentum in those games, because that's what we'll get to Martinsville in the game. 4 kids. I still remember what we were talking about the other day, Joe. 4 kids got in trouble for tobacco. Sitting at 4-1.
Note to the
Yeah.
kids still watching the show right now.
Oh,
Don't use
yeah.
tobacco.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or just don't get caught.
We'll stick with the first one first.
Yes. That's the first one. but
Or make sure the rest of your offensive line isn't doing it if you're doing it.
yeah, maybe it was a thing. I don't know. I still shake my head today.
All right, number 13, Milford Sisnam Park travels to Blue Ridge. Milford Sisnam Park, 53-point favorite. I have a win at 54-0.
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
let's go into Joe. Let's get into the playoff talk. This is what we've been
All right.
waiting for. I know,
Joe's predictions.
yeah. I know the people at home are waiting for this.
This is what they've been staying up late for.
We're gonna let you go first, Joe.
All right. Before we get into actual seeds in that, Kyle, I will say, so after 6 weeks, there's 11 teams that already have 5 wins. So Millersville, Pawnee, South Fork, South Beloit, all sitting at 6 wins. They're in.
Oh, don't
Cole,
mind that.
Amboy,
Don't mind
Alden,
that.
Hebron, St. Anne, MCP, West Central, Metro East. So, guys, we already got 11 of the 16 teams in the field here. assuming there isn't several upsets down the stretch and there's more than 16 5-4 teams. But Kyle, that would take I just don't see that happening. But we're assuming all 11 of these teams are going to be in the playoffs here.
Oh, yes, there's no doubt about that. I have I got the same 11 already highlighted.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I don't see anything else transpiring that's going to keep any of them, out of the playoffs at this
Correct.
point.
All right, so Kyle, you and me got a lot of the same projections here. We do have a few different ones, but I'll go over mine here. I got number 1 seed Milledgeville taking on in the winner of a coin flip. I got Martinsville and Orangeville tied for that last spot right
like
now.
Texas, they're gonna meet halfway in a gas station.
It's the battle of the Vills to take on the top Ville team in Milledgeville there in my projected field here. Martinsville, Orangeville to take on Milledgeville. So 8-9 matchup. This would be a fun one. I got Alden Hebron take on MCP. My 4-13 matchup, I got South Fork at 8-1 taking on a West Central team. 5 seed South Beloit taking on a 12 seed West Carroll, and that'd be a great first round matchup. That'd be a rematch of 2 weeks prior. That game's going to happen week 8. I got Pawnee as my 2 seed, jumping to the bottom of the bracket here, hosting Kirkland Hiawatha as the 15. I got my 7 seed St. Anne hosting FCW. That'd be a real solid first round matchup. 3 seed Polo taking on 14 Ridgewood, and to round out the bracket, 6 seed Amboy hosting 11 seed Metro East. So Kyle, I know you have just a few different projections, but all in all, we're pretty much, for the most part, spot on here.
Yeah, we're almost in lockstep, that's for sure. So I'm gonna go through my seeds real quick, and then I'll pull up my playoff bracket that has already been out there on the interwebs. But my number 1 team right now, or 1 seed I should say, is Pawnee. I have them at 9-0. I have Milledgeville at the 2 seed. I do have them at 8-1. I have them losing that Week 9 showdown with North Shelby. At this moment in time, North Shelby is a 4-point favorite. They have a big game this week in their conference. Both teams are undefeated. It's a toss-up game there too. And both those teams are ranked within the top 6 of the Missouri 8-man state rankings. So that is a big matchup for North Shelby. So talking about Milledgeville being prepared for the game, North Shelby's got the exact same aspirations sitting in front of them. Last year's 8-man runner-up in Missouri. Number 3 seed is Polo at 8-1. I have number 4, the 4 seed South Fork at 8-1. South Beloit at the 5 seed with 8 wins. Amboy with the 6 seed at 8 wins. St. Anne at the 7 seed with 8 wins. I then have Alden Hebron at the 8 seed with 7 wins. FCW at the 9 seed instead of the 10 seed with 7 wins. I have them with 1 additional playoff point over MCP based off of other teams I have getting wins.
Right.
MCP at the 10 seed with 7 wins. And then I have the 11 seed is Metro East Lutheran at 7 wins, projecting that they lose to Pawnee here coming up in a couple weeks. The 12 seed I have is West Carroll at 6-3. That is primarily due to I have them losing to South Beloit, which was a change in my projection from the week before. Ridgewood at the 14 seed at 5-4. Hiawatha at 5-4. And my 16 seed is a toss-up or a coin flip as well between Unity Christian at this point and Orangeville. So Orangeville as well, but I have Unity Christian there for the coin flip. Both at 4 wins, both 1 point above Martinsville at this time. And that goes back to the game with Duggar, Indiana. You had Duggar with 1 additional win, giving them an additional playoff point for Martinsville. I have them with 1 less win. I have Duggar going. Duggar sits at 3-3 right now. I have them splitting their next 2 games to finish at 4-4.
Yeah, Kyle, after you made your projections, though, you also got some news on Uni Christian. They got a few guys out the rest of the season that really, you wonder now if they can win that Week 8 game against St. Thomas More. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
That is
That
definitely going to be a critical game for Coach Hotman and the Lions.
Yep.
That could definitely change the impact to the playoffs. And obviously, Orangeville has a big Week 9 game against Abundant Life out of Madison as well. Abundant Life is 2-5. Obviously, Orangeville right now sitting at 2-4. That could be a very interesting matchup in Week 9 that Orangeville would have to win to get to those 4 wins.
And then find somebody that can win a coin flip, because both of you guys have us losing it. So we gotta find somebody that can. We gotta go.
Hey, Jay, I
I need to go find Billy Bob Thornton is what I need to go find.
I
need to go find
put
Billy Bob.
Martinsville/Orangeville. I got it as a true coin flip right now.
Kyle just don't even have us. He just has us losing it. I'm gonna watch some Billy Bob tape, and we're gonna get that all picked out, and we're gonna make that happen.
Well, it's
Friday Night Lights style.
It's because you're going to be on the playoff show, so.
Yeah, I will not be the one. I would not be the one picking, but we got to find somebody.
Yeah.
We have to find John Lewis. We might have to come out of retirement and do the coin flip for us.
Right.
So,
all right. So go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just say, let's take a look at this bracket of yours here quick.
Yep.
Well, let's just say things turn out the way you have them projected. I will say, Kyle, Polo fans are not a fan of your bracket. I'll put that out there. You'd have to play Ridgewood, Amboy, and Milledgeville on your way to state. That's quite the draw there. But no, but seriously though,
that kind of was what Milledgeville had to go through last year.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, they had to play Ridgewood, then Polo, then Amboy. Yeah, you're right. Kyle, give me your thoughts though on that, and Jay too as well can chime in on this. Let's say Milledgeville lose that Week 9 game, things stay the way that you haven't projected. Give me your thoughts on Milledgeville, Polo, and Amboy all being that same side of the bracket.
So obviously the ironic thing is you would have 3 of last year's semifinalists and 2 of last year's state finalists meeting up on their way. Realistically, another look at it is Polo's never missed the semifinal since their inception into 8-man. They've been there every year since 2019. Likewise, Amboy moved into 8-man in 2021. They have never made the semifinals. And
give.
3 of the 4 years they've been in the state finals.
So one of them would not hold true.
Yeah, the streak would end for one of them of making the semifinals every year they've been an 8-man. So, it's definitely interesting, Kyle. If that played out that way, that really opens up that other side of the bracket, though. You see several teams that could not easily, but several teams that you could make a case for that could be playing a Milledgeville and Amboy or Polo in that state championship game.
Well, one of the interesting things would be the South Beloit West Carroll matchup right away in round 1. And that would be...
They would have just played.
They would have just played it. Is it Week 8 or Week 9?
Week 8.
Week 8.
So, yeah, they play Week 8, come back 2 weeks later and play each other in round 1, and that game would be in South Beloit. Another one, obviously, you'd have South Fork West Central, and, for what it's worth, the South Fork has not made it past the first round, and they always have to go up against a West Division team in that first round, albeit it's been Ridgewood each of the last 3 years, but now you'd have it going against West Central. I still think South Fork would be the favorite if that matchup were to take place. Alden, Hebron, OSHA, and FCW, that's a tough one there. Both teams at 7-2. Alden Hebron would have the home field advantage, but I think FCW would be the better team overall in that matchup. And then, Pawnee, provided Pawnee does win out where I have them projected, they're going to move into that second round probably fairly easily to get into the quarterfinals, and then they're going to have a good stiff matchup in that quarterfinal game as well. Kind of like years past, I think, really, if this were to play out, Milledgeville, to me, has the easiest path.
Yep.
Realistically speaking, to get back to the semifinals.
Yeah, I don't think anything changes. If you're Milledgeville and lose, I don't think you're out anything, because normally you got to play a top team to make it to Monmouth, right? So not taking
Right.
anything away from Hiawatha, St. Anne, and MCP, but we're talking the Polo Amboys down
But
the line there, right? So they would have Hiawatha, who's had half forfeits and half games, double teams all year, that are going to be at 5-4. So you see Milledgeville winning that game, and then they're going to play the winner of a St. Anne MCP. Okay, you win those two games, you're a game away from where you were last year again, and Polo Ridgewood, that's a tough matchup, round one, and then you're at least at home again. You're home versus Amboy if you win that game. You know what I mean?
right.
So for Polo, it's like, yeah, you got to play two tough games, and then you got to go through Milledgeville, but at least you'd be home and home, and then you just go to you'd be right down the blacktop, right? To play Milledgeville. I think
Well,
when this came out, the number one thing I told Kyle, I said, I know Polo, Amboy, and Milledgeville aren't fans of this. The number one fan of this is probably South Beloit, because you look at what South Beloit is and where they're trending. They get West Carroll, who they'll find out what they're all about week 8, and that's where this could change. Let's say West Carroll upsets them that game. That changes West Carroll's dynamic. That's why that game's so big. But let's say it plays itself out. South Beloit will get West Carroll, who they possibly have beaten a couple weeks earlier. Then they get a South Fork West Central game, and then they're playing for a trip to Monmouth. So
hey, well, Jay, the other thing what you made me think of this there, if this played out this way, Milledgeville doesn't have to play both Polo and Amboy to get to state. That's what the key is there. They only have to play the winner of that game between Polo and Amboy if it works out that way.
Here's a coach's view of it in a different sense. If I'm Milledgeville, I like this, because my quote unquote, what you're worried about the state game, whether you're Amboy or Polo, where are you playing that game at? Are you playing it at Monmouth?
No.
Where are you playing it?
In Polo.
It'd be at Milledgeville. If Polo,
If Milledgeville, if it went according to seeds, yeah.
If it went according to seeds and Amboy beat Polo,
yes, it's in Milledgeville.
It would be at Milledgeville if you're playing that game. Now, if Amboy beat Polo at Polo, then it would be at Amboy, and that could change things. But if I'm Amboy, I'm sitting there like, if I got kind of the nemesis of who I've played, I'm going to play them in the biggest game
at my place.
At Milledgeville. That's a different way to think about it.
The other thing on that, Jay, if I could see FCW's at 10 beating St. Anne, then Milledgeville goes to FCW. So then Milledgeville's at home no matter what in the semis, whether it's Amboy or Polo, it wouldn't matter. They'd be at home.
Yep. So I like a lot of things, and I like that too, because if Milledgeville's at 2 and somehow we could win a coin flip, you don't have to see Milledgeville again. You just got to go to Pawnee if you're Orangeville.
Hey,
that's even better.
Kyle, I got a scenario that nobody's talked about yet, and I think this will get Milledgeville's attention. This will get your attention as well, guys. And this isn't that far-fetched, all right? So let's say South Beloit wins out, beats West Carroll and Polo, all right? Yep. So they finish 9-0. And say Milledgeville loses that Week 9 game. That's going to put South Beloit at the 2. That puts Milledgeville at the 3.
Yep.
But I think that would move Amboy. No, Amboy would still be at the 6, right? If that happened.
Yeah, but
you have Milledgeville 3, Amboy 6.
South Beloit won't surpass Milledgeville.
I'm saying if Milledgeville lost Week 9.
Yeah, they still wouldn't surpass. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, they'd be 9-0.
I'm sorry. Yes.
If South Beloit's 9-0, they're the 2, and Milledgeville loses that Week 9 game to Shelby, that's going to bump Milledgeville down to the 3.
Yes, you're correct.
Then that moves everybody.
And you'd still have South Fork at the 4.
Amboy would stay.
But would that move Amboy up to the 5 though?
No.
Or Amboy would still be 6.
Amboy would still be 6.
No, because your 5 seed isn't South Beloit anymore.
Yeah, who's
right? But Milledgeville would drop down.
Right.
And everybody above Amboy would still have more playoff points.
Right.
because
But Polo drops out. That moves Amboy up. Polo drops to the 7.
Oh, then yes, they would move to the 5.
So in that scenario, Amboy gets to the other side of the bracket.
Yep.
Yep.
And your round 2 would be Polo versus South Beloit, who will see each other in week 9.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
You
that'd
know?
be interesting. But the interesting thing about that scenario, guys, it gets Amboy opposite of Polo and Milledgeville, like what happened last year.
Yep.
And where
Well-
they'd be in the same side of the bracket as Pawnee.
I
So
don't
that'd just
want
be
to
interesting.
speculate for others because I know, people are tired of seeing the NUIC teams dominate the INFA state championship series.
Right.
But-
Well, this
For
yeah.
for our fandom, I would love to see Milledgeville and Amboy on opposite sides of the bracket.
Right. I think a lot of people would probably agree they're the 2 best teams. I mean, I think Amboy
Not
proved
if you
week
talk to
1.
the people down south, they don't think so.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll find out, I guess. But that's the beauty of it. But I'm just saying there's a lot of scenarios yet. And guys, really, South Beloit controls a lot of this, how these top 8 seeds are going to play out, as hard as it is to believe. They still have 2 big games yet, West Carroll and Polo.
Yep. Week 8
They
and
are
9
a
are going to be
big factor, a huge factor in how this plays out.
Well, and then not just that, but outside of those being 2 big games, those are 2 great playoff style caliber games to get them prepared for the playoffs.
Right. And the other thing, Kyle, we're just assuming Pawnee's in that 1 spot. Let's not forget, you only got them a 2-point favorite over South Fork. South Fork wins that game on Saturday, the Warren 104. They jump into that 1 or that 2 seed, depending on what Milledgeville and South Beloit do the rest of the way out.
Who would have more playoff points, South Fork or South Beloit?
Right now,
I believe I got it here somewhere.
it'd
Kyle,
be
you got it?
South Fork.
Okay, I'm looking at it here.
South Fork has more than South Beloit.
They're projected 40 to 39.
Yeah,
So
Right,
close,
so-
right? Like,
and that's with a loss, so it'd be 39 and 38 with a win if they both went undefeated.
so South Fork would be the 1 if they went out.
if Milledgeville lost.
And this is all if
Milledgeville lost.
Milledgeville loses.
Milledgeville,
Milledgeville is
Milledgeville's gonna
going
have-
to be a top 3 seed regardless of what happens.
yeah. Right. Yeah. It's just interesting to look at the scenarios of who they could have in that 2nd or 3rd round before they would get to state, for sure.
Yeah, for them as the 1 or the 2, I don't see a big problem either way.
Right.
Just because if you're the 1 and it plays out, a lot of your if it plays out how it is, a lot of your other teams that you've would like to see just in a championship is on the other side, and they're going to have to play each other. If you lose that game, you're the 2, you don't have to play really anybody. And like you said, if MCP ends up winning and Milledgeville goes there and takes care of business, no matter what in that game to state, I like that.
Right.
For me, I would like that more as a coach than playing at Monmouth in a neutral site. I'd rather play at my home base.
Right.
Hey, Kyle, I got one more scenario for the fans there, the NUIC here. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is NUIC football here we're talking, right?
And
Yep.
so nobody get all upset if we're,
let's-
yeah.
I just like to give the fans all the scenarios so they got something to talk about. So let's take this scenario. South Beloit loses the last 2 to West Carroll and Polo. And
But they're
Milledgeville
possible.
beats North Shelby. Milledgeville's the 1, Amboy's the 5, and that keeps Polo on the opposite side in that 3 spot. Polo would be opposite Amboy and Milledgeville.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that scenario's out there too, and that's not that far-fetched.
So
West
Polo's
Carroll
big
and
West Carroll
Polo-
fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but Polo would still have to beat South Beloit as well.
Right, but then you control your own
Destiny.
You control your
Destiny
own
there.
destiny.
you know.
I mean, Amboy, Kyle, there's no way in all the projections I've done, all the scenarios I've ran, Amboy's either the 5 or the 6 seed. I don't see how they're not.
No, they got the lowest amount of playoff points outside of St. Anne.
St. Anne.
So, yeah.
And I don't see how they can move up above the 5. There'd have to be some games that we're definitely not projecting, but I don't see how they fall below the 6.
Correct.
So it all just depends. That 5 and 6 depends what side of the bracket you're on, obviously.
The only
So
way they fall below is if they get upset somewhere in these next 3
right,
weeks.
right. I guess I'm not even taking that in consideration. I'll be honest. I don't think that's going to happen. But
No, they're the
I've been
heavy
wrong
favorite the
before.
rest of the way out. They just have to take care of business like they've
Right.
quietly been doing all season long since week 1.
Yeah. And when I seen the schedules come out back in April, Kyle, I knew this was a possibility. Though the loser of that Millersville Amboy game was probably going to be sitting in that 4, 5, 6 range. You
Yeah.
knew it was going to happen. So,
Well,
and here we are.
Let's say had it turned the tides, though, we would have seen Amboy go undefeated and likely be
Mhm.
the 2 seed, possibly, maybe the 1
Right.
seed. But Milledgeville would still be in that 3 seed or possible 4 seed because of
Yeah,
the
because
playoff points that they have.
they got so many playoff points.
They
Yeah.
have the most playoff points of any team. They've had the toughest schedule.
You don't see that much of teams that are sitting at 6-0, them having the most playoff points going
No,
into week
they're
7.
they're
It happened.
projected. Kyle's projection has them at
49
49 playoff points.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah,
is
that's
Polo though has 40. Well, are projected at 46, and then you hit 40, some 48s
right.
down there at the bottom with some, the 2 and 4, 4 and 5 teams. But for the top teams,
Yeah.
Milledgeville Polo are the top two, easy.
And you just
Yeah, well,
gotta
you look
at
at
their
Milledgeville.
schedules.
Yeah, Milledgeville played Amboy non-conference, and they're going to play that North Shelby non-conference, and they played Alden Hebron, who's going to have 7 projected wins. Pole played FCW's projected for 7 wins, and South Beloit, who we project for 8 wins, is their non-conference game. So it don't take long to add up when your non-conference teams are winning 7, 8, 9 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like you said, you got River Ridge projected to get to 4 wins, Orangeville projected to get to 4 wins. So even your mid-tier teams are collecting wins. And then don't forget about AFC getting that win over West Prairie. That added another point to that whole scenario as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. Those West teams, Kyle, in that West
River
division
Ridge
just
getting that
don't
big
have
win against BPC added another one in there.
Right. Yeah, they just yeah, and like you said, AFC, West Carroll or West Central, Milledgeville or Amboy. So, the West wasn't winning their games out of conference games. So that's why a lot of those West teams are towards the lower end of the teams with the same record as they have.
Correct. So anyway, that gives you a look. Wow, we've been talking for well over an hour, and it's been
We're
great.
not going to have a test on that, folks. Don't worry. We'll explain it all again next week.
And it will all be after this week. I don't think it will be as crazy as after week 8. After week 8, there'll be probably 5 different ways everything can peel. I think there's a lot of cut and dry games this week, but I think that week 8 matchups are gonna really play into week 9, which is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yep.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Remember, folks, projections. They're just projections. It's not because we like your team or hate our team or whatever. It's projections. And at the end of the day, you still got to go out and play the game and leave it all on the field that way. And, we're just talking heads, but it's fun. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. Obviously, some big games ahead of us here as we start to definitely get very tight into that playoff push with the last 3 weeks in front of us. Get out to the games, support your teams. As always, root for the NUIC.